All right, so this is obviously a live video. I have no idea where this is going to go. Well, actually, I know what the point of this video is going to be. Um, it's going to start out with some experiences, not the details of the experiences, but things I've noticed lately when it comes to being involved in the world, and more importantly, how people actually how people actually have a particular frustration with each other, and where this usually stems from. So my observation so far is that you have a kind of a standard that society hits, and that standard is basically, um, I think that we should mutually respect each other. It's a standard that I hold. It's a standard that society has had various ways of finding, various ways of telling us how to do that. Here's a social institution or a social structure that tells us what to do. So I think this is the point of this video. And like I said, I want to disclaimer: it's not an MBTI video. It's going to be more of a Chad rant, based on the way that I've been seeing things go and the frustration that I have with dealing with this. And before I really dive into this, I think it's funny because every time Trey posts a video, it's like I will do one, or if I do one, Trey does one, and it's not because we even notice. I think it's because we're usually on the same wavelength. We just have a tolerance thing, and that tolerance meter keeps building up until we both explode, and ours happens to be on the same time. Where we just feel like we have to dump it out because it's too much to watch after a period of time to observe the effects that others have on people. And so this respect is probably the most important virtue to me personally, not in the world, but just to me personally. I think respect is a thing that I try to always give, and sometimes I fail at doing this job. I'm not very good in some circumstances, so I always try to, and it's always a subliminal intention, and I have the intention that most times throughout my day, it's like I have this intention to give you respect in order to receive respect, so we can potentially build a good relationship. So the challenge I have with people is when they don't consider things like I consider them, and this is you know time is a limited value. Time is it's a limited resource. It's not something I can get more of. I can't earn time. And so when I decide to give time, it's a gift. It's a gift, or in exchange for something. So there's two ways I either give time. So when people make expectations or demands of me on time, that's where my frustration is. And it's not just me, of each other too. Some people absolutely love to give their time. I see it as a resource, and it's a resource that I'm not so willing to give away. I don't know how long I'm going to be on this earth. I have no clue. I hope for a good period of time, but I actually have no freaking clue how long I'm going to be here. So when people ask me, give me your time, without an expectation or even an exchange or mutual benefit, then this creates a problem. And it's a problem for me, ultimately. So I don't think you guys can hear me very well. Hold on, let me turn this up. We should be good now. Okay, we should be hearing me now. So I think you guys heard me. Hopefully, you heard me earlier. If not, then now you should. Sorry about that. I think I had an input problem. So that being said, I think time is the most important quantity. So I'll kind of repeat myself just for the sole fact that that might have got blipped out due to my microphone. So time is a limited quantity, and I put so much value on it. I put it over money. I put it over most things in this world. And when people make expectations or demands of my time, and that they don't intend to, they tend to they act in this way to where they feel like they deserve it. And I think that people do naturally deserve each other's time. The issue is that it's impossible for me to provide X amount of time, the same variable. And it's not fair if I give this person 3 hours worth of time, but I can't give this person 3 hours worth of time. It's the same reason why I charge for typing people, because I'm sure plenty of people, if I typed for free, there's a number of people that would probably want to be typed professionally by me. So I can't type people for free for the sole fact that if I do, then I have to type other people for free. And then it gets very personal. And it's, well, I did this person for free because of this circumstance, and now it's no longer fair. And to me, the world, it runs on this thing called fair. But my definition of fair is quite different than the world's definition of fair. Okay. My definition of fair is everyone is treated equally in that regard. Whereas other people's definition of fair is you consider individual circumstances, and that's what's fair. So I don't think that one is more right than the other. I just have a perspective that is different than the other side. So that being said, um, being fair is another issue that I want to talk about. This is going to be probably something that'll wind up pissing people off, but I don't really care because it's important for me to share this. So everybody's concerned with this whole world. Well, that's not fair. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. Well, you know what? The world isn't fair. And if I teach you that you can expect complete fairness in the world, then I'm teaching you something that's fabricated. The world isn't a fair place. Do you think it's fair that I was raised in a family that was abusive, mentally or otherwise? Was that fair that other people had this perfect family and they can go home to holidays and I don't? Is it fair that I don't have parents that I can count on in the sense of being able to help me through my struggles? Is that fair? No, it's not fair, but it's the way it is, and it's the way that we accept those things and move forward. Do I hold anything against my parents? No, I don't hold any resentment toward them. I've accepted the situation and I've moved past it. I'm not using it as an excuse that, oh no, I can't do this because my parents, or I can't do this because of my friends, or whatever. My weakness here, I'm not good at this, or I wasn't born with that. And it's easy for me to say because I mean, I've done very well for myself in the last 3 to 4 years, and I've taken care of my crap. But that's not always the way it was. And anybody who knows me in my youth or knew me in my youth would know how it was. And it was not an easy thing. My youth was it was a huge struggle. It was not something that was just fair. I was born with circumstances that I don't think anybody should be born with. But again, I think everybody has these circumstances that are just not fair. So when people would come to me and they expect fairness in this world, oh, I want this to be fair, or I want this to be fair, and this needs to be fair, and that's not fair, and this is not fair, and it's not fair that you were given this money and I'm not, or it's not fair that you did this and then I'm not. You know what? This is what makes the world a very special place, is because everybody has their unique advantages, and this is also what incentivizes us to have successful relationships with others because they can contribute something in your life that you can't do yourself. Okay, so that to me is more fair in the big picture than getting everything and having everything and not being able to receive gifts from others. And this is often what's led to my result in wanting to develop people as a coach, and which is what I've been doing for the last 5 years in the professional world, is helping them understand the philosophical differences between them and the philosophical point of view that it takes to achieve your goal. And so if your goal is to, establish this kind of business, what obstacles are you putting in front of you that you can't remove? What obstacles are stopping you from getting you to your goal? And it's not external usually, it's psychological. Your actions depend on, your underlying philosophy. You can try to will yourself into an action, but you're going to realize it's going to quickly burn out or fizzle out because your fundamental philosophy needs work. So it all starts in this fundamental philosophy. And I'm not saying that capitalism is perfect, and I'm not saying that any existing system is perfect. But what I am saying is that it's time to take the reins of your life and to start treating others with respect, and consider, actually just put yourself in their shoes when you're asking them something or saying something or doing something. Just think about, how would you feel if you were in their shoes? It's not a hard thing to start doing that. If you're not doing it currently, it's really not difficult. Um, you can't always have the right answer, of course, because you may interpret things differently. Like, I don't take offense to some things that other people would. And if they do take offense, I apologize for it. And I try to understand how they take offense to that particular thing I said or did or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I understand how that was offensive. Now I get it, because otherwise I wouldn't have taken offense, but you don't know their life circumstance. Like Trey said in his video today, which y'all should watch. It's pretty fascinating. He said that you just don't know why people do, or why they do what they do, or why they say what they say until you dig. You got to find out what the motive is. What caused them to do that? You don't know what world they have suffered to be the way they are. Are they right? Are they wrong? It's not about being correct. It's not about entering a confrontation with somebody and saying, oh yeah, I won or I didn't win. Or, to me, that is like immature thinking. It's about, did you walk out of that conversation with A, value of your own, and then B, did you contribute value? Did you make that conversation a separate entity in which you can invest value? So if you do, that's a good thing. Your relationships with other people are remarkably improved because you're contributing value. Even in a conflict, you can still contribute value. The problem with most people is they don't understand the word value. What does value really mean? What is value? If I'm contributing, just think about it this way. You know what? I've done a video about this before, but I'm going to just cover these 10 communication qualities that I've kind of adhered my communication methods to. And the last one, the 10th one, is have the intention of making people's lives, they make their lives better, some way, shape, or form. And you know, sometimes they ask you for something. They're like, "Hey, I want this," or "I want this from you," or "Can you do this for me?" But they wind up getting something different, and they may get pissed off about it. But in the end, it actually helps them. It's giving them advice. They may ask for something and say, "Hey, can you do this for me, or do this for me, or do this for me?" It's like, "No, but I will give you this, or I will tell you this." And sometimes you do have to chastise them, and obviously in the most proper form, or at least let them know how you feel, about the situation, or how you prefer to be treated. Ever since I was a kid, for me, it was always about thinking about other people before me. And I'm not saying I'm selfish or selfless. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I thought about people and the circumstances that I would be in. So I always cleaned up after myself. I hated leaving stuff for other people to pick up after me. And to me, this was always common sense. Like, okay, if I leave this here, someone else is going to do it, so I'm not going to do it. Or if I leave, if I take the vacuum cleaner and I leave the cord undone and like leave it all laying around the house, someone else is going to do it. To me, that is common sense. I don't know why people don't actually think of their actions when they're doing something, and the impact every action has on the people around them. So if you're in a family environment, what impact do your actions have? What impact are you making on the people around you? Are you leaving shit for them to pick up? Are you leaving them to clean up after you? See, I've always had this mantra in my head, which is, you know, you always want to be unseen. You want people to, not mantra really, but just this whole theme, this philosophy is, everything should look as if you were never there. Okay. So if I go into something, I'm gonna leave it exactly how it was when I went in, or better. Okay. Never worse. So if I went in somewhere and I picked up, let's say, I was at a friend's house or whatever, and I ate a banana, I'll bring back two. I replace stuff that I take. That's the philosophy. If you take one, put back two. If you take something, put back two. Double it, make it better. Sometimes you don't have the financial means to do that if it's actually anything costly, of course, but you can definitely replace it and just be considerate. And this is why the criteria for me and my quote unquote high standards, which I see as common sense, take care of other people, to me is so commonsensical that I don't understand why it's so difficult for so many people to do. I mean, I have my theories. We live in a self-centered, narcissistic world. Everything's about Generation Me. Let me take my selfies and let me snap photos of myself all day because I'm the most interesting thing on the planet. But I don't think that is all there is to it. There's a lot of fundamental problems, and these people that are doing this, and I say these people, including myself in other ways, have trauma of some type. So I'm not blaming them. All I'm saying is, if you're one of these people doing things in your life, you need to consider A, being aware of it, and then B, having a plan to fix it. Start being conscious of that, the fundamental philosophy. And if you feel like you have a new philosophy that's going to work for you, you need to embed it in your brain. You need to put it in your brain. Okay. Anything you do is going to be, it's going to be pretty conscious. And there's a lot of actions that are unconscious, of course. A lot of actions you'll be doing subconsciously. You don't know you're doing them until you're done them. And then you're like, oh, okay. If you're washing dishes, like as many times as I've washed dishes, I don't even have to think when I've washed dishes. That should be true for most people. And so, I think it's, if you're doing something unconsciously, you can always start being conscious about what you're doing. So if you look into Eastern, spirituality, what you're going to find is a lot of mindfulness. And that's what it's about, is being mindful. And I've always tried to be mindful in my environment. I'm not perfect. I screw up. Sometimes I'm just thinking about other things. I forget. It's not about being perfect. It's about the intention. And the intention is always visible because you can see what is most consistent. So this is why my environment has always made others, I guess, intimidated by being around me, is because they know that I have a standard that I set for my environment. The reason why is because my environment affects my mental state. If my environment is messed up, or it's being inhabited by things that are not conducive to a productive state, I'm not in a very good mood. It doesn't work out for me very well, because like I said, time is, like I said in the beginning of this call, time is a limited resource. So if my productivity is being limited, then my time is being spent. Okay, they have a very, very, very correlated relationship. It's an inverse correlation. Okay, my productivity decreases, time increases. Okay, so if things are limiting my productivity, then they are limiting my growth potential. They're limiting my ability to be able to be improved. It's actually very costly. It's more costly than financial means at all. It's way more costly than financial means. So I think it's about the philosophy. It's really diving deep into the philosophy. If you look into Trey and his video, what he will be focused on, you know, on not only on his channel but his entire methodology for coaching and working with people is improving the interpersonal development between two people. And it could be a friendship, it could be a social setting, so not more than two people, but interpersonal development, you know, and then some in personal development. And this starts with being self-aware. And I think the self-awareness of, and is, in my definition, is the awareness of self in relationship to space and time and the people around you, which to me, they're spiritual beings, which is outside of space and time. So they're separate and they're listed separately. Space and time, their bodies are physical, but their consciousness is it's an eternal spiritual element. Okay. So, you know, being aware of that and your relationship and the correlation you have with everything around you. So in a sense, that's what part of developing a spiritual sense is being aware of those things and the impact that you have. I've always seen the universe, not just the universe, the physical universe, but time and everything that we can ever think of, no matter what, is an action, is a pin drop into a lake, and the water ripples. And it doesn't just ripple one way, it ripples in all ways. It affects everyone and anything. One small action can lead to the change of the future. I guess this is called the butterfly effect. And for me, it's the same thing. These small little actions that we think are so harmless can actually cause an effect in that we did not expect or anticipate. Not that, you know, these seemingly good actions are going to result in anything better, because we don't have the capability to be able to project, you know, 5 million different outcomes, which we know will be true. We can make only assumptions. But I can tell you that when you start with something good, it generally winds up with something good, or at least good intentions. Sometimes you just can't win. Of course, there's always variables of that. But I think it's important that we really start being mindful of our environment. We start being mindful of the way we interact with others. We start being more patient with people and understanding that, you know, it's not about, you know, being or reasserting your Myers-Briggs type, or it's not about, you know, hey, I'm this, so I can do this because it's okay for me to do this. I mean, I find myself wanting to rationalize, say, behavior that may appear brash or abrasive as an Enneagram 8 and an ENTJ. You know, it's like, okay, that came out, but I tell myself it's not okay that you do these things. It's just what you have to do, or it's what you know, not what you have to do. It's a mistake. You shouldn't behave that way, you know. And you tend to do that because these are tendencies. If we look at Myers-Briggs as a whole, what we find out is it's just a starting point. It's just, hey, this is your disadvantage. This is your disadvantage. You preference these things. Okay, these other things that you don't preference are areas for growth. Instead of saying, hey, I'm good at this, or I'm a whatever, ENTJ is a natural born leader. I don't know about this natural stuff, but I can tell you that it's I don't look at the positives that much. As a critiquer by nature, I always look at the negatives. I look at myself and go, where can I improve? So my eyes always go to the blind spots first. What can I improve? The weaknesses first is most important. What can I improve about my personality? Every event, I'm constantly doing this PDR method in my hand. It's plan, do, review, plan, do, review, plan, do, review, plan, do, review. And that's how I am throughout my entire, you know, adult life and my professional life. Is you're going to do something, or you're going to plan something, you're going to do it, then you're going to review it. And that could be in a conversation. So, you know, let's say that I have an idea. I want to take somebody on a date or whatever. I have this plan. I do it. I execute it in the way that I think, and then I review it. I go, did that work? What did not work? What was effective? What wasn't? What was outside of my control that I can't consider that circumstance? Because one thing is about taking responsibility, which I've put a big emphasis on in a lot of my videos, is about taking responsibility. And, you know, so for me, you know, hang on, I'm going to get Trey to join this call a little bit. I think it'll be more dynamic because right now I'm talking to myself. So let me get him to jump in. So I got to send him a link real quick. I hate talking to myself, but I do it quite a bit. All right, so he should be jumping in. I'm going to assume. Okay. All right. So he should pop in anytime. We'll see what happens. But as far as that goes, you know, I think it's about planning, doing, and reviewing. And sorry, he's just sent me a message. Okay, so it's about planning, doing, and reviewing it, and being able to, you know, look at those things and being able to say, okay, where can I reflect on this? How can I reflect on this? How can I become a better person? And I think that a lot of us try to reassert ourselves because we live in an environment which is conducive to us being insecure. Okay, we live in an environment which, you know, kind of puts in a position to be insecure because society has these expectations at which they press on us. Okay, here's our expectations. Here's what we actually, you know, think is ideal. Okay, whether it's the physical body, whether it's the way that we think, the financial success, anything. So we tend to lack in certain areas of those things, and then we feel like we're lacking. And so that's the issue, is that we're comparing ourselves to this thing. So it can create a feeling of insecurity. And that, to me, is what the root of a lot of this issue is. Not the root. I feel like the very, very, very centralized root of almost all the problems we suffer today is education. But that's a whole other topic I don't want to dive into right now. But as far as, you know, us being self-aware and being able to do what we need to do, I think it's imperative that we set a standard for ourselves, you know. And I've been pretty adamant about every couple of years, what I do is I try to revisit my values. And I like to revisit my values because I realize that as I grow and change, things change. I get to be, you know, a better person. I've learned things, I've grown, I've changed. So I revisit my values. As an ENTJ, this is a beneficial thing to do because obviously FI is my inferior function. So sometimes I don't quite know what my values are until I actually pull up my document and go, oh, that's why I do what I do, you know? And so I have a document that I've written that puts my values on a piece of paper. And it's not just bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, but attaches meaning to the value and to which it's actually applicable. Okay, so I don't say, well, my values are being true to myself. Well, what the heck does that mean? Like, you know, what does that mean? You need to have an application. You need to have a good understanding of what that means so you can actually apply it. Again, you're targeting your point of focus to develop is targeting your philosophy. This is called intrapersonal development. Okay, so if you want to have a successful life, and I say successful not in the means of financial, I mean successful all around, you need to have intrapersonal development and interpersonal development and spiritual development. Okay, the spiritual is that connectedness. And this is associated with what I call the 5 levels of maturity. And they're not different levels, they're all different categories. So you have your physical, you have your mental, and mental is your perceived intelligence with certain things. You have your emotional intelligence, you have your spiritual intelligence, and then you have your sexual intelligence. Okay, these are all different. I'm sorry, I said intelligence, but sexual maturity. So sexual, spiritual maturity, emotional maturity, mental maturity, and then physical maturity. Physical maturity, you actually can't control. That's biological. Okay. Again, you know, you're going to start with the things that you're going to have disadvantages in certain areas. You may be sexually awkward as hell when you're interacting with a person of the opposite gender. You may be so damn awkward that you're like, what the hell's going on? That is, again, it could be nurture, but it could be a disadvantage you were born with. But you know what? You can fix it. You know, most of these disadvantages, you just got to work harder. You know, I remember I was never really good at sports. I was never really good at sports. I can tell you right now, I was okay. I played quite a bit and I had a good time with it, but I was never like just a born natural. Like I just picked it up and I just could do it. You know, I had to bust my butt to get any good at anything. And I worked hard. And I told myself, you know what, just because I'm not good at it now doesn't mean I won't be later. I'm just going to bust my butt and over and over and over and over again and just practice. And at some point, we all are born with talent. But skill is developed. Okay, so skill is developed. Talent is what you're born with. You need both. And so this applies to the world of interpersonal communication as well as interpersonal relationships, as well as intrapersonal development. And so,
what's up?
I got to turn my audio on because I can't hear this. But intrapersonal development. So, hey Trey.
How's it going?
How you doing?
Good. I'm gonna send you that guy's link. Okay. His email.
Yeah, hey, you can just send that link I sent you over text too. That will work.
Really?
Yeah. So it's the same link.
I was just Skyping and we were talking about this actually, and then I was like,
I told at the beginning of this video, I said, I don't know why. It's like Trey and I are always on the same wavelength when it comes to the things we wish to rant about. And so, and it's, I think that what I came up with, the conclusion was that, you know, we take so much from the daily life, and then we just have to let go at one point, and ours just happened to be time around the same time. And
that's so weird.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, and you know, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I was just thinking about this stuff, and I'm like, I got to do a video. I just got to do it. And then Trey's like, yeah, I was just talking about that. I don't know if it's like some deep interconnected spiritual relationship, but I can tell you that it's pretty funny, regardless. Hello, Cameron. My name is Chad, and I'm one of the hosts of NBTV. I'm glad you're joining us today. Trey says you prefer ENTP. Is that correct?
Yeah. Hey, it's nice to meet you. I guess I should properly introduce. Yeah, Cameron. I don't know what he's told you about me, but I'm from Ohio, and yeah, I'm just basically just pretty interested in this. So yeah.
In MBTI, or just in talking about people and developing intrapersonally?
MBTI. Yeah. Pretty much.
Both.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sums it up, people. All right. So as I was going on, I was talking about the development of interpersonal relationships, as in developing yourself and being aware of yourself. I believe one of the first steps is being self-aware. And I specifically mentioned this to the audience before you guys hopped on this call. That was a little unplanned, but like I said, you know, I've gotten through some points. But again, we can always rehash those things, because you can never know enough. There's no point where you're in life and you're like, you know what? I passed the Tony Robbins stage. Now it's time for the Dale Carnegie stage. There's no such thing. You can always keep learning more. So if you feel like you know something and you're watching this video and you go, yeah, this is all basic crap, you're not even in the same game. You're like in a different game, because that's not how it works. You're going to learn bits and pieces, and ultimately you're going to put these puzzle pieces through your life. You're going to put them all together, and you're going to have a philosophy, a foundational philosophy, which guides and encompasses all your actions throughout the world. This foundational philosophy is what's actually going to lead to, you know, success in your life. And I'm not talking about success, because the ultimate success is not financial, it's not physique, it's not physical, it's not even relationships. The ultimate success in life is happiness. And that can come through the form of relationships, that can come through the form of interconnectedness with other people, that can come through the form of financial success, but ultimately it's the core level of happiness, which can be satisfied outside of, you know, anything in the physical realm. It's internal. And everybody's heard the cliche statement, you know, happiness comes from the outside. It comes from something, you know, that's you know, you don't have, or you weren't born with. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's very, very centered on your personal development. And Trey, you said something earlier in a video, and I don't know if you caught any of this video right now, but I did. You did. So you did say something on the video you posted earlier that was really interesting to me, because I watched all 27 minutes of it, and the video specifically mentioned, you know, you said people don't understand the motive of why people do what they do, and you know, we can always blame this on MBTI type. Is it because we're intuitives that we naturally go, why is he doing that, instead of somebody going, you know, that's what he's doing, and just looking at it at a certain surface level? I don't want to limit it to MBTI type. I want to really, you know, dive in deep and figure out, you know, why do we not give people the benefit of the doubt, looking underneath the surface and saying, what is the motive for people doing these things, and why do they do these things? And I also introduced in the beginning of this channel as well, which I also am going to mention, is that, you know, Trey's moving in the direction of being an interpersonal coach and building on, you know, the relationships for, you know, working with MBTV, building relationships, interpersonal relationships. He's got an excellent ability to be able to identify personal traits that can be enhanced. And so this is one of the reasons why, you know, you'll see on Trey's channel or on MBTV here and there that Trey's really talking about issues of the heart. And this comes from, again, developing your character. And I think there's one thing you guys got to do, and you got to understand, is that pretty much if you open your mind to a philosophy that you agree with in some way, shape, or form, which to me, Trey, makes perfect logical sense, then you can benefit from, you know, watching his videos and talking with him and actually consulting with him and seeing what, you know, what he can offer. You know, he can offer quite a bit of insight. You know, he's pretty advanced even for his age. If you think about it, you know, he just graduated high school last year, and he's already, like, you know, working with a lot of people in his personal life and helping them get a foothold of things that may be seemingly chaotic. And it's important for people to understand that, you know, it doesn't matter. This is not a matter of age. this is the digital age. We're all interconnected. Information's out there. It's no longer, you know, I've been stuck at home for 18 years. I mean, you can be at home for 18 years, but you can have the maturity of a 30-year-old because now you have access to people and information everywhere. So the age game is out. You know, as far as there, you know, there's a saying, and I think I actually posted this on a blog on the forum as well, which it was a blog that I posted today on the forum actually. And it said, there was a part that it was mentioning my teacher and kind of the things he taught me in life. And he said, you know, people say that experience is the best teacher. No, you know, experience is not the best teacher. The best teacher is the best teacher. Okay, so that is why would you want to go through suffering when you have the option of learning first? And, you know, so it's sometimes we just like to be stupid. You know, I like to be stupid. I like somebody to tell me, you know, you're wrong, and I'm going to do it anyway. Either if, you know, to spite them, or I'm just an idiot, which it's sometimes a mixture of both. You know, but the point is that we need to be aware of what we're doing and look back and go, okay, I shouldn't have done that. For example, one of my friends told me today that I procrastinated on a particular thing, which I didn't procrastinate. I actually, you know, I had other stuff to do, and I didn't prioritize. There's a difference, but I didn't prioritize it. And because of that, it had a consequence. So during the call, he was telling me, he was like, well, I told you should have done it 3 weeks earlier. You should have done it this, and you should have done, this is why. And I said, okay, look, I screwed up. I said, either I screwed up or I didn't, but that's still not solving the problem. And so I was like, let's solve the problem. I was like, I take responsibility for, you know, the delay and the inconvenience it's caused, but now that I've taken responsibility, there's nothing else we can say about it, so let's move on and solve the issue. And so, because talking about it and blaming me is only going to do, once I accept responsibility, it's time to get over it. And this is one of the areas in interpersonal relationships, which I find that, you know, if people are arguing amongst each other, it's like, how much do you have to lay the blame on somebody before you can move on and actually solve the problem? Because laying blame doesn't do squat. You have to take responsibility at a certain point and go, yeah, I'll own it, but then what? Right? So, yeah. Trey, do you have anything to add to that before I go off into another rant?
Yeah, you were talking about age. And I think that with age, one of the biggest problems with age is that, you know, someone can become extremely biased, and I think you see that with like all the introverted functions is what I think of when I say bias. But you know, people get prideful about what they know because their experience tells them this and that. But the thing is, like, you know, you'd be surprised at how much you learn if you were like, if you knew that you were biased. Like, here's something I do. It's when like when I first started doing this, I realized how dumb I was because like I thought that I had some kind of intelligence in like what people were going to do and the outcomes in situations, and so I wouldn't take part just so like, okay, I'm not going to use that example. That's just wrong. I might. Okay, you know what? I'm going to be extremely transparent and tell you this example. Okay, so one time I was at the movie theater, right, and I'm sitting there, and this guy behind me, I thought this guy behind me was recording the movie because he came out with like a tripod thing and just like put it behind me. and I was like, okay, this guy's recording the movie. And I was like, and I thought about the two different things that could happen here. I could ignore it completely, and just because like I've watched online movies for free before, I appreciate that ability somewhat. But I also know it's wrong and shouldn't be done. So I was like, I could just continue watching this movie and just ignore him completely. And I know that he wouldn't go to jail. I was like, but I don't know whether or not he'll go to jail if I do tell someone about it. And so I was like, in order to learn how things work, I'd like to know whether or not me pointing this out to someone who has some kind of influence or something like that, whether or not it will lead to him getting in jail or getting a warning or what. And I just wanted to know. How serious is this problem in society and how will people handle it? So I ended up texting a friend and telling them to like call the theater or whatever, just to have them do it because I didn't want to leave and show that it was me or anything like that. So I channeled it, you know, trying to see what would happen. And come to find out, I learned something from that experience, and it was that this guy was not, in fact, recording the video. What happened was he was disabled, actually, and he needed like his own screen and like headphones because I think he's like deaf or something and like had really hard hearing. And so I learned something from that experience, like. You know, now taking his life into my hands is something entirely different, but the focus was I may think that I know something, like someone may think that they know something, and then they do it and they're wrong. And so people avoid, and INTJs are known for this, and I'm not saying they do or do not know this, but I'm saying like they're known to just go, I know what will happen if I do this, so I won't do it. And so what ends up happening is like they may avoid a certain situation because they think they know what will happen, but then will it really happen? You know what I mean? Like, what if they actually tried it just to see if they were right? And then usually when they do, people are like, oh, I should have trusted myself and I should have trusted my experience and stuff like that. But like, it's different. Like, things change. And you know what? The more you try that to see whether or not that outcome will be the outcome you think it will be, like, the more you test that, the more you learn the outcome and how things work in that direction. And so like, being biased kind of eliminates intelligence in a way, and it's people's own personal pride and ego that they hold on to by saying, let's see if I'm right, let's see if I know things, and they go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that because that's dumb, or that person may be lying because I know what people look like when they're lying. But the thing is, like, you may be missing out on something because you've labeled them as a liar. And like, just stuff like that, where you're so focused on your own ego that you can't even focus on whether or not you may just be lacking in intelligence, and then it just makes you blind. And then, you know, I call a lot of times I call biased people old. Like, if I see somebody that's just like, they think they're right, I call them old. And the reason I say that is because you know, old people have a lot of experience, and you know, I've seen wise old people that realize that they don't know everything, and that they have to test things and they have to understand things more before like just saying that they know. Situations vary, and they can't just assume the truth to be what they think it is. But then I've also seen old as in like extremely biased, where it's like they're just full of themselves and they think they're right. And I've seen that and been looked down on because they think they know my situation and they think they know things like that, and they'll tell me what it is, and I'm like, how do you know this? Like, how are you supposed to, like, you can stand up on your hill and tell me that you know everything because you can see it from up there, but there's like this one spot behind you can't see, and like, you don't care to get down off your hill to come and look at it. You know what I mean? Like, their ego is up there on that hill, and they're going to stay up there because, you know what, they're the bomb, they're the man, they know what they're talking about. But like, if they came behind me and they saw the struggles behind me, like the shadow behind me, they'd see what it was that caused what I'm doing now, what caused my action that they can see. So it's very surface level, and they can't get off their hill to see what it is that I'm doing that causes like why I'm doing what I'm doing, my intention. And so intention is very important to me because, you know, I can take anything. I mean, it's just like I see so many people get put down because of one thing, like because of one thing they say or do. And it's like, how can you even do that? Like, that's probably one of my biggest struggles. Like, my whole life was just told the reasons I was doing what I was doing, like told exactly, you know, why what I was doing was bad, and how I couldn't justify it and things like that. And, you know, it's like trying to get yourself out there, especially with like, for me, I think this plays into it, inferior FI, not really being able to understand why I was doing it. Now I kind of like, you know, I spend time after that trying to figure it out and reevaluate everything, and I realized that, no, my intentions made sense. I was doing this for this reason. And I was put down so fast because someone was on their hill, their ego, and they couldn't like come down to see what it was that I was doing, like why I was doing it. And you know, you can judge people your whole life and say that someone's doing something for this reason, but you're just ignorant at that point. Like, you have to learn the person. People have their struggles, and people have reasons for what they do. They have thought processes like you do. And when they do things because of motivations and fixations. And, you know, even if it's something really bad, you say, well, you can't justify their bad behavior. Yeah, maybe not. But the thing is, like, you can understand what they're trying to fix, because people have solutions to their problem. And that's just the thing, is like, you have an event that happens to you, you have something that happens to each individual that causes him to have a certain perception of reality. And the solution you choose to fixate that perception is really important to the way the rest of your life is going to unfold. So, for example, you know, I may see that someone in my life has a lot of pain. This isn't a personal example. I'm just using some kind of simulation. I may see that someone in my life has a lot of pain in their life, like, you know, and I may have been young and not been able to do anything about it. But the thing is, like, I see that there was someone that needed help and nobody there to be for them. And I can't really be for them because I'm too young. All I can do is like show that I appreciate them, but that's all. Like, I don't know how to fix their problems. I'm too young. I don't understand. But the thing is, like, at one point, and even then you're kind of biased because you're like, that's pointless. But like, the point is, like, you know, you're looking at someone's problem. And the thing is, that person may have a perception of reality now that says there are people out there that need my help. There are people out there where there's somebody that's down here, and there's somebody, and all these other people that are up here that can help those people, and I can be there for them because they have the time, the resources, and the ability to help that person. And the thing is, what ends up happening is you can live the healthy side of that life where you go, I'll be the one that's there for other people. I'll be the one that puts my time aside to help the individual. Or you can say, my life sucks, and I expect somebody to be there for me. And then what happens is, because you have this understanding of the world where it's like, you know, you've got one person down here that needs help and all these other people that can help but don't, you know, you can either put your time into that and help people, or you can be on the side that says, look, I'm in pain and I'm expecting someone to be there, and you're putting them to a standard that's just way, you can't put someone to a standard like that because you're assuming they're going to put all their time, they're going to give all their time to you and be the best person they can be in that sense. And someone knowing that you have that standard, they don't know that and they can't fulfill that. And then you have an idea that people just suck and that no one cares for you. But it's just because your standard for them helping you is way higher than other people's standard. And what you really should be doing is being more focused on how you're helping other people, and how you can necessarily, how you can kind of you know, flip that, where now you're on the healthy side and you're contributing to other people's lives, and maybe even making that a job where contributing to other people's lives are something that you do for income or something. And you know, doing that, finding a way to make that your livelihood will then make everything in your life turn in a more positive direction, because you're a resource. You help people. You're there for people, and that's what people need. And so you can do that in a variety of ways. But the point is, like, your solution. A lot of people don't know what their solution is. They see the problem and they don't know how to fix it. They see, I feel this way, but how do I fix these feelings? And they don't know how to fix it. And so what they end up doing is they end up, because they're confused, latching on to things that seem to fix the problem, or seem to half-ass fix the problem, or something like that, where they think it's fixing it, but it really isn't. It's just kind of distracting them or making them feel a bit better. And they hold on to those things because that's their security, that's what's telling them that they're doing okay. But the thing is, really, their solution should be in a different direction. It should be in a more positive direction, where it's impacting lives and impacting their own personal life. And so I think that.
So Trey, I'm going to pause you real quick. Just for anybody watching this video, I'm going to set up a part 2 here in a second. I don't know if YouTube is going to broadcast this live or not. My computer completely spazzed out. So I'm going to give me about 5 minutes, and then we're going to restart that. When we get back on, we're going to talk about solutions to these, say, interpersonal awarenesses that are considered.
Okay.
That's weird.
So yeah, that's very interesting. I'm just curious.
We're still live, by the way.
Oh, cool. So for you, you say, people try to find solutions to these problems, and then, it turns out they don't really, put that in the right direction, or the way they're doing it isn't necessarily, like, the words you used are probably different, but they don't use the proper solution, or they don't use one that's going to help other people, or they don't use one that's going to help themselves even. What if somebody's solution is to just kind of like, also, it probably is going to depend on which case it is. So let's say something completely different could happen to every single other person. So some people might just like ignore the problem in the first place. Would ignoring be a solution? How do you see that solution?
Well, the solution being ignoring the solution?
Just ignoring everything. Just don't even care about it.
Well, that's that sounds like it sucks.
Why would it suck if you don't care about it? I mean,
well, because like I said, you have a perception of reality, like you have a perception of the way things work, and so your feelings are going to be kind of allocated to that perception. And so what I can see is that there's an imbalance, and you're kind of trying to fixate that.
Great. It's still broadcasting. I didn't know if it was going to cancel or not, so I'm glad I'm back. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen. All right, so Trey, what did I miss?
Well, he just asked me what I thought about, like, taking a solution and the solution being ignoring the solution, and how that he thinks that it would affect, how I think that it would affect.
It would matter what the problem is, but
Yeah. And I think that most all, like, I think it's a general rule, and of course, this is a new study. This is something that I've kind of like, I haven't even learned it anywhere. It's kind of just been like, you know, my own personal like observations. But what I'm
Yeah.
seeing is that there's a pattern of like people having a perception of reality that's it's not you can't get this perception. There's no neutral zone. You're not going to be able to reach that middle point. You're gonna be a bit skewed. No one's gonna see the world for what it is. They're gonna see some kind of variation of it. And so one person.
I want to talk to you about that, Trey, because I actually took the liberty to go on your Facebook and find out what post it was you were talking about, and you know, and so I was curious, you know, and I could see your perspective on why you decided to even where you got the whole point, not your post, but where you actually got the point of your video from. And you know, because people tend to want to see views in their own eyes, like, you know, this is the way it is, like, and the thing is, and you've said this in a video before, it's about variables. There's so many variables that you can't possibly know what the outcome. You can get a general idea, this is the way it is, but to be so assumptive that this is exactly what's going to happen, to the point of that it's so slanted because you can't incorporate all the variables. Sometimes it's just that one variable that you're missing that's going to result in a totally different outcome. And so that's where the difficulty is. Now, at some point, you are taking a chance or a risk. You're going, you know what, I think this is what's going to happen, so I'm going to go with that. As an entrepreneur, that's what I do quite a bit, is I get a good gut feeling, oh, this is what's going to happen, and then I go with it. But many times I've been wrong because there's variables that I didn't consider or I didn't think. And if it were the case that this is the way it is, then that's what creates these problems. And that's what's going to make me shove my viewpoint down your throat because I'm right and everyone else is wrong. You know, and that's the whole point of, I mean, it's fine to share your opinion, but after a certain point, and this really starts in the world of religion more than anything. Religion is the most archaic, and I'm not saying Christianity is archaic. I'm saying religion is very archaic in its text of this is the way it is, and this is the way it's not, and the way it's not, and it's not specific enough to where you actually know what the hell you're talking about in the first place. And so, you know, you have this openness to it for interpretation, which it can be interpreted in multiple ways, and everybody's like, well, that's just interpretation. Well, yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. But for me to tell you that it's wrong, because again, if you interpret, you know, a particular verse in, say, the Bible, and then you interpret another verse that contradicts it, then you just had confirmation bias that it's contradictory. Whereas if you look at it in the lens of many scholars, it has no contradictions. So what's the deal? Is it contradictory or is it not contradictory? It's because it's interpreted in a different way. And this is the same for life variables. If you look at one variable and another variable, two different people are looking at the same side of the coin, they can see totally different things because it's perspective. You know, that's the thing about art. And this is why I like to shove the appreciation for art down people's throats, is because when you look at art from one angle, you see one particular facet of it. When you look at art from another angle, you're like, oh my God, I did not understand it until I just got this other side. And now I think I get it. But even then, you haven't seen all perspectives. What about the bird's eye view? Did you see that perspective? No. But the point is, every perspective that you add to your way of judging information, the better it's going to get with time. And that's often when we say experience, that's what we're talking about, being able to see things from multiple perspectives. But I said in the beginning of this call, when Trey jumped in, it's not about experience being the best teacher. It's the best teacher to be the best teacher. And if the teacher's telling you, look at it from this angle, this angle, this angle, and this angle, which that's the whole thing, you know. You're looking at it from multiple angles, and you're looking at a different perspective. And this is challenging for a lot of NI users and SI users, okay, for their preferred method. And this is challenging. Yes, they appear more mature in society's eyes, but the challenge is, you know, more mature naturally, as in younger. They tend to mature younger, NJs and SJs, rather than NPs and SPs, mainly because society has criteria for what maturity is. And I have a different criteria. Trey, what would you say about that, or Cameron? Actually, let's hear from Cameron a little bit.
So for maturity, what you would consider to be maturity, or
okay, so my definition of maturity is, again, it's almost the same definition as spirituality in my regard. They're very similar to me. And maturity is essentially being able to take yourself in a position and see where you're at, and be able to weigh out outcomes instead of acting on sheer impulse. Being able to calculate the impact that you have on others around you, and the impact you have on yourself, and understanding that the choices that you make you're not the center of your own universe. And if you can understand that, then that's a good grip and gaining perspective on. And to me, that's what maturity is. And like I said, there's 5 types of maturity, though. Okay, there's physical maturity, there's mental maturity, there's emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, and sexual maturity. Okay, this is a perspective that I was taught a while ago. And emotional and mental it sounds the same, but it's not. Emotional is your ability to handle your own emotions. Okay. Mental maturity is knowledge, intellect, collecting data. It's becoming smarter, and becoming wiser. Those are mental maturity in the area of applied knowledge. Okay. Physical maturity is something you can't control. It's biological. Okay. And spiritual maturity is, again, being aware of your place in space, time, and relationships with others, as in what impact do you have on the world around you every single moment of your life, and to be mindful of your surroundings. How mindful are you of your surroundings? And I don't mean just the physical surroundings. I mean of the impact on your surroundings as well, which is very intuitive, and then of your surroundings, which is very sensing-oriented. And then you have sexual maturity, because all those other maturities can go out of the window when a beautiful woman walks into the scene. It's all over. For a lot of guys, it's all over. All that maturity is gone. That they just gained. They're willing to sacrifice that. There's a different impulse that drives sexuality than what drives, say, spirituality, or what drives, spirituality being more center, of course, but what drives the things are emotional maturity, and being aware of that is key. And so I think that we all should stop, beating around the bush when it comes to sexual maturity, and stop saying, oh, that's a taboo topic. No, it's not. You need to get over it at some point and grow past it and look at it as a point of growth. And I'm not saying, okay, have sex with everyone and anyone. I'm saying understand the perspective of sexuality in itself, so it doesn't impact the other areas of your personal development and growth.
Mm. I like that. I like that. So I guess I
want to hear your answer, but I gotta hop out.
My answer for what maturity is?
Yeah. So I want to hear your response. So hang on 1 second, okay?
Thank you. Certainly.
I think it was funny. It was like you just dropped it all and you're like, okay, here it is.
Yeah. No, I would like to answer that question. My answer is probably going to be a lot more general. I have a lot less experience than other people, but I mean, for maturity, I'm going to wait for him to come back, right, to answer. That's a plan.
Okay. So while we're waiting for him to come back,
yeah.
I'll go ahead and talk about the question you asked me. When it comes to people and their decisions on their solution being ignoring the solution, I think that a big problem with that is, with that imbalance, if you're ignoring, you're not trying to achieve that upper side of the imbalance. There's 2 sides. There's either the side where you've got immense pain, and I know that there's different ways to see this, and I haven't looked at them all yet, but because I know they're there, but I don't have a lot of evidence to support it. But I know that for the negative side of this and the positive side, you've got the positive side, which is directly fulfilling your understanding of the perception, or your perception of the world. So if you understand that this is how things work, and it's kind of invisible, so you don't even know they exist, because something may look like it's neutral for you, but for someone else it is way off, and that's because of their perception of reality. And so they think that something's neutral, and you think that something's not, because of the way you've both been raised, and the ways both of you have kind of seen the world around you. And so because of that, you're either going to be directly fulfilling this positive meaning where one person may feel that there's lots of pain out there in the world, and they want to help solve that pain. The other side might be I need someone to help my pain, and stuff like that. Expecting people. And so I feel like when you're ignoring it, and when you're not trying to fix the problem, I feel like the ignorance of fixing the problem is only putting you on that negative side. I don't think there's a middle. You know what I mean?
Could you give an example problem, like what? Like my cat died, or
I mean, okay, I mean,
late, or what?
I mean, for me, I didn't when I was a kid, communication between me and my mother was really bad, because she's ESFJ, I'm ENTJ, and there are a lot of things besides that. But the point is, I didn't ever feel like anyone would understand. I didn't even really know what I was. Honestly, I kind of felt like all of my intentions, were misunderstood to the point where I doubted what my intentions actually were. And so in that example, I can ignore the problem completely, and I can say, I have this feeling of being misunderstood my whole life. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I don't even know what my own intentions are, and I don't have these like strong beliefs about what how much people should care about intentions. Instead, I'm just going to let people do everything when they want to, and I'm just going to kind of be here.
Yeah.
In that stance, you're feeling that negativity. If in the positive stance, you'd be trying to address that problem in society.
And it wouldn't even have to be your problem. So are you the type of person, because I wonder, are you the type of person that worries about other people's problems? You make their problems yours, you know?
Kind of, occasionally.
Yeah, because also I feel like it kind of matters how you frame what a problem is in the first place. Because if there is a problem, then you're probably going to address it because you actually see it as affecting you personally. But it also might come down to whether or not you actually see it as a problem in the first place. Like that relationship with your mother or whatever, or any problem for that matter. You know, different people are going to see that with different levels of, you know, what they actually see it as. So some people might not even see that as a problem. They could care less. But, you know, you might personally, you know, you might just not have a misunderstanding of what's going on, why is this happening, and I don't know the entire situation, but speaking generally, I feel like that problems could probably, and the way people deal with it, you know, it comes down to maybe how you define a problem in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
That, I don't know.
I mean, I would say that it's a problem when people have to feel negative emotions
Yeah.
because of things that they're trying to cope with versus finding a way to not necessarily cope, but fulfill that part of you that needs to cope. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like when I see like a problem, you know, coping with it is just taking the problem and holding it in your arms and finding out the best way to caress it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
It's like a frame game.
yeah. And like, you know, you could take the same thing and you could go, look, instead of holding this problem and caressing it in my arms, let's find some way to fix it. And what I mean by that is like, let's say, and this is going to be really intuitive, so like, I really hope there's not a lot of censor viewers right now because I don't want to get everyone off. But like, the point is, what I mean is like, let's say I'm holding this problem in my arms, and it literally, like, when I look at it, it looks like it's a disturbance to the environment. Okay, it's a disturbance to me. Like everything that I have in front of me, it doesn't look like the air around me. It looks like another color.
Mm-hmm.
I should say. Okay, let's say I'm trying to fix that. If I pour all the work I can into making this look like the rest of everything else, and making it neutral, it's not going to look neutral because I've always had that black spot in front of me. You know what I mean? I've always had this black like problem in front of me. So if I can fix it, if I can pour in all my heart and resources into this area right here into making it normal, it's going to look like such a bright spot because I've never seen this area as it is. I've always seen it with the problem. You know what I mean? And so really, I feel like everyone has this kind of black spot in a sense, and it's something that they need to find the best way to take that and kind of normalize it. But for them, it's not normal because they were born with that. So it feels amazing to have it.
Well, like I said in the earlier part of this video, Trey, it's not fair that we were born with it. You know, I think that you should give me yours because it's only fair, right? Your little black beast, your little black beast should be sent to me. You know. And but the point is, what I want to really capitalize is not just talking about this issue that we all have, this monster, this little devil child or whatever it is that affects us, the problem that we're talking about, or the problems that we have in our lives, but it's actually fixing these issues. And me particularly have struggled with, and I say struggled because I've fought these things my entire life. Given the circumstances of everything I've went through, it's like, you know, you have this preconceived notion that this is this way because this is how you perceived it, but your life has been this way. So it's always, my life has been a battle, not with the outside world, but it's been a philosophical battle. And I'll tell you this from probably 16 to about 24 years old. That time span right there, that 8 years, I would say, that 8 years was brutal. It was like the most brutal 8 years of my life. I got my ass handed to me on a platinum platter, and you know, mainly and primarily because was that the mouse? And
Nope.
so, but it was a platinum platter of ass kicking, is what it was.
Yeah.
And it's because, you know, it was a challenge of philosophical. You know, I've had these preconceived notions of how things actually were, and I kept going and kept going and I kept going and I found myself always challenging and saying, you know what, this can't be right. This can't be right. And the good news is, I've never actually shared it, but I actually have it. Is I've journaled the entire experience.
Wow.
Okay. So I actually have the journal right here, which is pretty cool. This is the journal that I used at the time, and the entire experience was written pretty much as I went through it. So when you read this stuff, which I will publish someday, not as a book that published so it's publicly visible. I'm not going to sell it on Amazon. I don't care, but I will publish this to where it is visible. I'm going to have to make some edits because some of it is just too personal, but I will definitely publish the stuff that's in here as far as people being able to see it, because you can see the mindset, the philosophical change from the beginning to the end. There's actually a huge change in philosophy. And so the very beginning was very adamant. It was very harsh. It was very, you know, this is the way it is, and you know, screw everybody, and everybody sucks, and the world sucks, and people suck, and they're horrible, and you just put them down, take them down, rip them apart. You know, if anybody tries to get in your space, rip them apart. That's pretty much how it was. And as throughout the book, it became progressively more peaceful. And you could see, and I've read through it a few times, and some of the stuff I wrote in the beginning actually appalls me. It's pretty disgusting as a human being, you know. And at the time, I thought I was so right. Like I don't remember reflecting on myself at the time and going, oh, man, that's so horrible to say. I never did that. I thought it was so right. My point is, I am not at the end of the road. I'm 28 years old. There is still a long journey ahead, even after this life. Okay, and the things that I learned in this life. Our job, my job specifically, as a teacher, is to pass those things on so people don't have to go through the same experience. But the experience is well documented. Now, it's not like every day. It's not every single day. Otherwise, I'd have like hundreds of these journals. But it's pretty consistent. You could see about every month or two, you could see a consistent entry, or, you know, at one point it's like a series of 3 weeks or whatever. Point is that you could see that personal change that happens because I was targeting philosophy the entire time. I said, I rooted myself. There's a book that everybody should read, and it's called The Slight Edge. It's by Jeff Olson, I think.
Read part of that.
Yeah, and the very beginning of the book, it talks about, and there's a very similar book. It's called Compound Effect. It's by Darren Hardy. But the very beginning of the book of The Slight Edge, it talks about how philosophy is the fundamental thing that you have to change. Okay, you don't change your actions. You don't change anything else. Your actions will change as a result of your philosophy being changed, and that's 100% true. At least in my circumstance, when I targeted my philosophy, my actions started changing. I actually started surprising myself, like, why did I do that? I don't understand why I did that, or what happened here, or what happened there. So the key is, I don't really want to dive into the reason why we're all this way. I want to be here to provide solutions to why we're doing what we're doing and how to fix it. Okay. The most important part of this entire call to take home is the solution to this, and the solution is to fix your philosophy. If you find yourself being challenged in a certain area of life, it's very likely it may not be you totally. It may be other people's philosophy impacting you. But I told you in the beginning of this call is you need to take responsibility for what's yours, but you also have to learn how to differentiate what's not your responsibility. Do you control the outcomes of others? Do you control people's actions? Do you control what people do, think, feel, and react? You know, like. Example, and Trey will probably totally relate to me on this. I watch these shows once in a while, and everybody's like, the reason why he died is my fault. and I've never been in that position. I've never been in the position where I blame myself for someone's death. Okay? Because, you know, unless I directly killed them, like I stabbed them and they died. Okay, that's my fault because I stabbed them. But as far as, like, you know, blaming yourself and taking blame for things, that to me is also a sign of immaturity. It's cool to take responsibility, but you don't want to take excessive responsibility for you don't want to take excessive responsibility for things that are not, you know, that are not in your domain, and other people are not in your domain, you know. But I've always been one to take responsibility, and the only thing that's in your domain, as like I said in many videos before, and I'll say this again, is as a man, which I am, My my belief is, you know, in my personal life, this is not something I'm infringing on other people. It's my personal life, is that I take responsibility for anything that happens in my household. Okay, that's my duty. Is anything that happens in my household, I take responsibility for, even if it involves other people. It's like the captain of the ship. You know, I'm the captain of the ship. I go down with the ship. So it's a ship. The thing is, many men, and I don't want to dive into the whole, you know, patriarchy versus matriarchy thing, whatever. I don't want to dive into that, but I want to say that many men want to take this role of control, or anybody rather, not even just men, women too. Whoever wants to take the role of control, they don't often look at the consequence of that role, because that role is not as esteemed as people think. There's a consequence. You take responsibility for the failures. And then when it actually succeeds, you don't give credit to yourself, you give credit to the people that are in your family. You know, so you not only do you not get credit, but you also take responsibility for all the failures. So it's not a fun job, but it's my values. And so when things go down, it's on me. And when things go up, it's on them. Okay, it's never me that's going to be the person that goes, oh, look at me, I'm such a great person. I brought my family to whatever, this particular point in paradise. You know, whatever. It's not me. You know, so it's important to understand that's the role the mantle that you take, and anybody who's heading their family, man or woman, like as a man, that's my values. But again, like I said, this is not a universal value that I think everybody should have. It's just in my particular thing, and I think that's universal for anybody who wants to say they're taking responsibility. But you got to do that for yourself, and not even if you don't have a family or you don't have those circumstances, you got to do those things for yourself. And those things, as in like, okay, my action resulted in this, my philosophy was targeted here. How do I take responsibility for those things and get those things taken care of, you know, so that I don't deal with those things in the future. And then on top of that, I can actually correct them, because you're a victim until you take responsibility. You're a victim. You have no control. He did that to me. He did that to me. They did that to me. They did that to me. Those people did that to me. Instead, we look for solutions. And to look for solutions, you take responsibility. It's part of growing, and that's that maturity I talk about. You know, it's that self-awareness. To me, that's where the whole mental maturity kicks in. That's the whole emotional maturity. Don't get emotional about it. That's the whole spiritual maturity comes in. Okay, my relationship, my impact on other people. How can I change this thing? You know, and that's that whole aspect of maturity, is being able to take responsibility. It's a big part of it. So own yourself. Own your results. If you don't produce, figure out why you're not producing. And that doesn't mean finances only. It means a lot of different things.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to reframe it just a bit, because like the way you said it made a lot of sense to me. But I feel like, you know, what you're basically saying is like people, a lot of things will happen to people, and like they'll have this like feeling, and they're like they blame other people for it. But you know, the thing is, like, if you can't force them to find out what was wrong, you can't force them to understand the situation better, to diagnose it, or whatever. Like there's no way you can force somebody else to do that. It's up to you. If this happened to you, despite whether or not it was, you know, their fault or your fault, that doesn't even really matter, because the thing is, if you knew more, if you were a better person, if you were, if you had studied and made more sense of it through what you could learn, like you could have probably diagnosed and fixed the problem better. You know what I mean? But at the time, you didn't know how to do that. You didn't know what your solution was, and so like that's why you have the problem. You can't force someone else and expect someone else to own up to it and go, look, I'm going to go learn how to fix this problem. You know what I mean? I'm going to go learn if it's me that's the problem or you that's the problem or whatever. But instead, like if you're put in a situation where it involves more than just you and involves other people, which it almost always does, you're going to it just makes more sense to take responsibility for it and go, look, I'm supposed to learn this. Like it's my mission, because you can't expect someone else to say that for themselves, whether or not they're involved. Chad, you originally had a question for Cameron that we've been...
Yeah, I do want to answer that.
Okay, go ahead, Cameron.
So for maturity, that's a really interesting question to me, because I personally consider myself to be a pretty immature person. But immature, but I try my best to be mature. Looking at the different ways of how I would define, there's a lot of different ways, and a lot of people, I feel like, in my parents especially, I feel like there's a lot of things that could even make my parents immature, and you know, they're pretty old people. You know, they have a lot of experience in the world, and in a lot of ways, I feel like that they just don't understand things the way that they should. You know, you're this old, how can you still think that stuff? For example, there can be a lot of ignorance with immaturity. So people that don't understand things entirely. For example, I personally believe that people that see certain things such as like Islam as the primary cause of terrorism, you see a lot of the media will portray Islam as being the cause of terrorism, whereas it could be a cause, but it's really the people that are interpreting the Islam, and the way that you interpret things causes a lot of the bad stuff to happen, right? That's an example of someone being ignorant. And I feel like as people grow up, it doesn't really change whether or not they become more or less ignorant. And from my view, at least, maturity comes with being able to have a more openness and not being so narrow-minded.
Right, and that's part of the mental maturity aspect, which I talked to you about earlier. Mental maturity, as you know, the more you actually know, the more you're aware how much you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's mental maturity, and so it's really cool because it has an inverse relationship. I gain more mental maturity. I realize how much I don't know. Yeah. And that's the profound impact of that.
Mm-hmm.
People are so fixed on these opinions. This is the way it is. Like, this is the way it is. And I'm actually working on publishing this to be set for sale on the Myers-Briggs website as developing each maturity besides the physical one, which you can't really develop. I mean, physical, yes, you can in the fitness way, which that's a whole nother topic. But
yeah.
So I'm gonna target more on the other four because everybody kind of knows fitness. Go to the fitness experts for that. Obviously, I'm a certified personal trainer, but I'm not gonna go down that. I'm not gonna go down that road because there's plenty of other experts out there that can do that. I want to target the other angles that's not so covered. And and that's the point of MBTV. It's to target areas for that full development of that. And so yeah, that mental maturity is really, really, really important. And it's really cool when you start reading, because I can't stop reading. I have to have some kind of brain content because I realize how much I don't know. And it used to be an insecurity in me, like, wow, you're really dumb. You need to keep reading. Wow, you're really dumb. You need to keep reading. Like, you're really dumb. And then as I got older, and I mean older in the last 2 years, I felt like I was getting dumber, but I was actually reading in such amounts that it kind of expanded my horizons. For example, when I was in 5th grade and 6th grade and all through elementary school and all through middle school and all through high school, I just was a great test taker. I mean, tests were like so easy, I could do them in my sleep. I never even had to study. It was so, and I was a straight A student. I did just excellent in college. I did it really well. And so the point is, though, as I got older, I was reinforced. Hey, you're a really smart kid because your grades are good. Society says, oh, wow, you're really brilliant, whatever. And so when I got older and I realized I started reading, I'm like, man, I don't know crap. So I was actually accusing myself of forgetting. Okay? I was like, what are you forgetting? You're really dumb. Like, I mean, every time I read one thing, it branches into like 10 other subjects that I could potentially investigate in to really ultimately have a good understanding. And there was a conversation on Slack the other day, and this is really important for mental maturity as well. There was a conversation on Slack the other day that one of the participants said, he goes, I thought you were an Enneagram 5 because you seem to have a really good understanding of things. And I said, I understand from the big picture, not from the depths. Okay, I understand from looking at things with a really, really broad perspective. And so I can just see the really large picture and the interrelationship between objects, so I can fill in variables. And, it's like things just pop in my mind. They're pow, 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 pow. There they are. And I know the answers, and I've never read them anywhere. I just know the answers. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that I'm 100% right all the time, but I have a good understanding because all the missing pieces. If you put together a jigsaw puzzle and you're missing one piece in the middle of that puzzle, you know what that piece looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how my brain works. It's like I just know what the piece looks like and that's the same thing. Just imagine my entire life experience as a jigsaw puzzle with a bunch of missing pieces, but the rest of the pieces around them are complete. You can see that. And this is what introverted intuition does, is it patternizes things in that kind of way, and you can start seeing those pieces. So when it comes to understanding a subject, I do it in a very NI way, which is just seeing the big picture as opposed to every little detail, the nuance of that particular thing. So when it goes down, it's like I can still talk with people who know the details because I see the big picture, and I can okay, that's what goes here. And sometimes there's 3 pieces missing, and you're like, well, it could be this, but I'm not sure. You see what I mean? So it could be this, but I'm not sure. And so that's my perspective on gaining that mental maturity. So every time I was kind of moving through life and I realized, okay, this particular component needs to be filled with this one and this one and this one, and this particular component needs to be filled with these 3 things and these 3 things and these 3 things, and it kept branching out, and I kept getting this bigger and bigger understanding. So when I read into European history, I naturally understood American history. I had a natural nuance for American history without ever touching American history. And people are like, well, how do you know that? And it's because I study European history, and European history relates to American history. American history was influenced by European history. So you can automatically assume, based on the frame of reference that's going on in European history, you can assume what's happening when these people left the European world, and or rather the modern world, and went to this new land. What what did they feel at the time? Why did they create the Constitution? You know, start with the Articles of Confederation and then the Constitution. Why? Why did they?
They felt it was missing in the other.
And so naturally, I kind of knew what they were thinking without actually reading what they were thinking, and then I confirmed it when I actually read what they were thinking, because I still wanted to know. I didn't ever trust myself and say I know because I know. I looked at it and I said, okay, let me see if I'm right. Let me see if I'm right. And this is what Trey talks about. Why don't you just, instead of being so conclusive and saying you're right, why don't you add,
I looked at it.
Let's just see. And so that's key. Hey, we just had a guest enter, and correct me if I'm wrong, Saren. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, so Saren, if you don't mind, I'd like to share your type. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Saren is an INTJ. He wanted to participate in this call. He said he had some insights on this particular subject, so I'm very happy to have him here. He's been pretty adamant about viewership with us, so I'm glad to have him here and kind of see his perspective, and I'm willing to hear some of his thoughts. So, Saren, you originally suggested you want to jump in the call and share insights.
Give me. What you need to do is give me a 5-minute breakdown of what you guys just said, because I had pretty much issues with the YouTube stream. It kept buffering in and out, so I'd hear most of the conversation. But if you can just give me a general rundown, I'll catch up real quickly.
Okay, so Saren, basically we're talking about levels of maturity, the 5 levels of maturity, and they're not levels, segments, rather sections of maturity. We're talking about physical maturity, mental maturity, emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, and sexual maturity. And I was talking about mental maturity being ultimately the overwhelming component, and saying that when you gain more mental maturity, you start realizing how much you actually don't know in that regard. And I was kind of talking it through my life process of where I felt like I was getting dumber because I was actually taking in more knowledge, and the more knowledge I was taking in, the dumber I started to feel. And for me personally, and I was talking about how my introverted intuition actually interprets information and how I'm able to understand subjects without actually reading about them, because I see things in a big puzzle piece pattern. And so that's kind of where we left off right when you jumped in. So Saren, please share your insights. I'm sure our viewers would love to hear you. He's on Slack too, so if you ever have any questions, just tag him on Slack. He's got a hard name to spell, but just type in Saren and you'll find him. So
I'll be right back real quick.
Sure thing. So, Saren, are you caught up?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the dilemma, that we're being lied to and told that there's a society that we believed that where we were going to live in is no longer available due to the factors of jobs, community, whatever you want to call it, but it's being affected big time. And the people that we're getting sent to college to get taught skills that a majority of the people won't get jobs after they get out of school, and they get debt that's $40,000 per semester. Well, that's if you go to a private. If it's a
Right.
public, it's only $20,000. But if you go to community, maybe $10,000 a year, right?
Mhm.
So for a semester or whatever you want to call it. But it's not functioning great as you were speaking earlier. I had that same dilemma with you of trying to harvest as much data as I could, or knowledge, through
Yep.
reading as many books, weekly, daily, whatever you want to call it. But I'd probably read like maybe 40 to 100 articles online, which were like maybe 5 to 6 paragraphs long. And I've read quite a few books through my years.
Sure.
And
So, go ahead. I was going to ask you a question about that, but go ahead.
It's hard to harvest all. I try to just keep the information that I feel I can use in the future. I purge the information that I don't, or anything that is of no value. I destroy it, which is a kind of a loss, because you spend so much time trying to get a functional picture of what your master plan, or what you thought the goal line was for your future. And to keep finding out that the rules keep changing and the goalpost keeps moving further and further away from people, that they no longer can succeed and get the American dream, because people currently running the system. Give me a second. shit, I hate when I do this. Well, they keep lying to you, and they keep telling you that you're gonna get there. You're gonna get there. And the fact is that a majority of people will get there, but they're leaving a whole bunch of people to just jump off a cliff or go headfirst into the water.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you can talk for a little bit, then I'll jump back in.
Okay, so Saren, I'm in 100% agreement with you because I said the core root, and I think this is what really might have triggered you to jump in this call, is education. And for me, I don't like the way that we're being educated. I think it is archaic. I think that our entire education system is a scam. I think it's a big it's a complete ripoff. People are getting we don't know what happened, but people are getting their education, and they're winding up not being able to get jobs, like you said. There's a few who do, but it's no longer the way it is now. And this is often due to the fact that we are sort of moving, and I'm saying we're sort of moving there. I hope that we continue to move in this direction, but because of new political policy, it's kind of infringing on this. But society was having a natural shift, and that natural shift was in capitalism. Okay, and so that natural shift is moving from employment model to entrepreneur model. But now our public policy is saying, oh, let's penalize people who own small businesses. Yeah, let's do that. If you get more than 50 employees, you're required to pay everybody's health insurance now.
Correct.
Let's de-incentivize you. So we want to keep you as employees now, but the natural shift is pushing people to be entrepreneurs.
Correct.
And so it's really, 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 really archaic.
It's a fucking joke.
Yes. And I'm, as a student myself, I went to UTSA, and I've studied for I don't know 7-8 years out of college, and for me it's been more of a.
What's your debt right now?
Oh, I don't have debt. I paid it.
Did you have scholarship? Oh wow, nice, good job.
Yeah. So I paid cash, but I knew that what other people are going through. So this is the real challenges that I knew the struggles that other people were having financially, and I was like, oh man, this is it. And I see what was happening, and I said, the education that I received in college, I didn't learn jack squat. I didn't learn a damn thing in college. Nothing. And I said, if you're going to take that money, okay, so let's say that the average person that graduates college, they pay $50,000, $60,000. Let's just be fair. Let's just say average 80. Let's just say 80,000 average.
4 years.
Yeah, so $80,000 for a 4-year degree, bachelor's degree or whatever. Let's just say $80,000, and they're paid $80,000. What could you do with that $80,000 if you invested it in a business? Because I've seen people turn a business around with $20,000, with $15,000.
Well, that was the same argument that the guy from I'm not sure if it was PayPal or whoever said that he'd pay people to drop out of college and give them a little bit of funding to start their own businesses. I forgot his name exactly. But,
is that Damon Musk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that I mean, I don't know about that. I've never heard that, but I also heard that he actually paid people to join PayPal, like to start an account. He paid them like $20, and his funds went really far down, but a bunch of people ended up joining.
Yeah, but we're I don't want to get too off topic. We can talk about the effect of awesome businesses in the future. And Elon Musk is a whole YouTube topic in itself. But let's focus on the task at hand, which is actually focusing on, okay, we know that we at least all agree that education is a problem. Would I say that's fair, right?
Yeah.
So education's an issue. Everybody's throwing up arms and saying, okay, it's education. Education's a problem. Okay, so we're here at this point now. It's like, what the hell do we do about it? Okay, and a lot of my viewers who've been following me for quite some time, they're like, Chad, tell me what plans you have for education. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you my plans, what I have for education right now, because I have a lot of plans, number one, and number two is I don't know all the variables. Okay. And so when I get a good grasp of all the variables, then I'll start working on actually changing or reforming public education. Which, Saren, you actually left a comment and said you're going to change it. I'm interested in hearing what you have to share, what you're willing to share. If you're not willing to share anything, that's fine. But I'd love to hear what you said. Okay, I'm going to break this archaic model, which I agree with you. It needs to be broken. How do you plan on going about it, and what is kind of your general principle? Let's just say that.
Well, here's the dilemma. Like, if once I had a master plan. Like, I don't know if you know about INTJs, but they don't think in, small steps. They look into the future in the long term. scenarios, and I've actually finalized like probably 4 to 5, 6 businesses that I want to start up. And in order to get the first two, to get them funding to actually attack the education system, it's going to change. But I'll give you a brief intro into what we have right now. Is just like a
Okay, so
a
when you say
mark.
is it a team? Did I miss that? I don't think I heard you.
No, it's just myself right now. That's currently, but I've gathered knowledge from other people that have been thinking about the same thing. But like people that do homeschooling, correct?
Okay, yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm following you.
Can you hold on a second?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that being said, we want to target education, and education's a big deal. Okay, so some of the skills that are missing in education, obviously, there's critical thinking. Okay, how many people actually critically think naturally? If we break this down into Myers-Briggs types, how many people actually naturally critically think?
Is it natural, would you say?
Huh?
Would you say critically thinking is natural?
No, not for most types in Myers-Briggs. Okay, because again, what's the prime area for focus for most Myers-Briggs types? I will go as far as saying that the most natural types to actually critically think are dominant or auxiliary introverted thinkers. Okay, naturally. Now, introverted intuitives also, they think in a different way, but it's more open. It's more, wow, I can see the big picture, and then they learn to critically think naturally on their own. Whereas TI is kind of natural critical analysis on itself. So that's a difference. So, TE, this is what has built the entire foundation for our public policy. It has built the entire foundation for our, our education system is TE, and it's faulty. Okay, I'm not saying TE is faulty. The entire system is faulty. So, Saren, not to interrupt, but go back to, I want to hear what you were saying. I know you had to disconnect for a second, but hop back in and tell me what your plan was.
Okay, so what I was saying is homeschooling, correct? Everybody has been they've been putting dog piles of shit on it and saying the people that come out of it are inferior quality and that they don't compete with the people that go through high school together with regular students, correct? So it all depends on who's teaching the kids. It doesn't just come down to if it's let's say a redneck versus someone that actually cares for the kids and gives them a whole general breakdown of all possible knowledge to gather. I mean, it like currently right now, you send like what your kid to school, and he's getting taught by one teacher, which has to control about, let's say roughly, if it's good in good cases, it's under 20 students. But if it's cases like Los Angeles or another large large city, it's you're roughing around like 24 to 32 kids. And how are you expected to teach 32 kids that don't want to be there in the class, like you had mentioned earlier, when you have like probably, let's say, 8 to 10 that are probably more advanced than the other ones that can jump ahead, but they don't do so because they're told that you have to wait for a next year or 2 years. Don't get me wrong, there are those kids that are intellectually really smart and they pass them over to high school or college when they're in their teens. And that situation actually happened to me when I was in let's say high school. We had a kid that was maybe 12, 13, and we were like 16, 18, but he would hang out with the computer geeks, which of course I was in. I was learning computer programming and Cisco development and computer PC technical skills. And he would hang out with the teacher during lunch because I'm not sure if he wasn't comfortable with other kids picking on him or I don't know if he just didn't fit in, but he was a smart kid and you can totally tell. Like the group that I was hanging out with, we weren't average individuals. We were more ahead of ourselves, and we would stay late sometimes and just mess around, talk to each other, and we were all TI, I would say, I guess, NTs.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a good synopsis of kind of, given the circumstance of the variables involved that we were talking about earlier. I'd like to hear a little bit from Cameron or Trey regarding, Saren's point of view and anything like that. So you guys got anything to say?
For education?
Yeah, for education in general.
Yeah, well, education, I've read some things that, well, basically, I see education as really an investment, and it's about what you can get out of that education. And today, unfortunately, a lot of the jobs, requires education. So I personally see college as being pretty important, but should it really be that important? That's also a problem by itself. But the prices, I would say, are the number one problem at the point. And in my opinion, I don't really see which college necessarily you go to. It's about trying to get something out of that experience. I've read a book by Mark Cuban. It's like How to Succeed at Business. It's like I like it because it's really short, and I don't really read books. I don't have like much of an attention span for books. So he writes in it that when you're looking for education and choosing a college, you should choose one that you're going to get actually something out of it. You shouldn't dump a bunch of money just because of the name. Like he said, he applied to all these different colleges, and he didn't even visit the college that he ended up going to, which was Indiana University. He only picked that school because it was in the top 10 business schools in the United States, and it was the best price. And that's kind of the way I see education. It could definitely be changed. I don't really know what the direction would be towards, but if you don't need it, then I don't really see why you do go to the school in the first place,
Yeah, in today's society, it's less and less important. The only thing about education which is important right now, in my opinion, I say the only thing, but it's one of the only things, is that with older people, a degree gets you a long way, and it gives you also a common background. So if you know that somebody went to this school and you went to this school, then you do that. But the biggest asset I got from education is connections.
Yeah, that's how it is. It's networking.
When I was in college, I was able to build a vast network, and that's what education does for you. For me, it was the network. But again, you can go to all kinds of young professional events or events in your community and find these people elsewhere too, because the people you want to meet are all over the place. Yeah. And they're literally all over the place. They're all around. And you just have to figure out what they're doing, and you do the things that they're doing, and you're going to find them. But yeah, the whole situation. Trey, I know Trey's writing some stuff down, so I'm going to let Trey talk a little bit. I'm sure he's more than willing to share his viewpoints if he's writing stuff related.
I wasn't writing. So.
He might be doodling. So.
For education, it's not like one of my strongest passions, so I don't really know a lot about it. But I think that, education and the education system are entirely different. And to look at education and what I believe it should be something that you're able to choose, something that you're able to discover more. It's something that you should be able to find, uncover. But what the education system is like a door in front of that saying, look, in order to get all this information, we're going to put a bunch of advertisements in front of it saying what this education is going to get you, and then as well as putting a big door in front of you, and this is the admission fee to have a chance of educating yourself, which is a big problem in my mind. Just kind of everyone believes what the signs tell them, look, this is what you need. In order to have a good life, you need this education system. You need to get in these gates, because it's almost like there's a path. There's a numbered paths to take, and it's almost like this is the shiniest one, and they put all these great signs and stuff, and it seems like that's the one that's going to get you there the easiest and the best. But that's probably why people take it. It's because it's the path of least resistance. But at the same time, I don't think it should be that a college education shouldn't be the promise of a good life. The education system shouldn't be a promise of a good life. It should be the opportunity to learn and expand yourself and know more. And I think that just the symbolism that what people see college as and what people see in education as is a big problem in my head, because I don't see education as a way of getting through life easier or a way of like achieving what you want to achieve necessarily. I think it's more like, I think it's more like something that you have a desire for and something that you're thirsty for. And like, you should be able to get that. You should be able to like attack that. And I'm not saying that like, I'm not a Bernie supporter, guys. I'm not saying that we should all get free college and stuff, but I think that it makes it really impossible to like have a happy life because you want to get educated. Like that's just what it seems like to me right now. Is like a lot of people spend a lot of money on degrees, and then they have so much debt that it's like it's almost as if all that debt is keeping them from going where they want to go. It's like once you get in the admission fee, now you don't have enough money to get out, and it just seems like the biggest problem for me is like what education is as a whole. Like I want education to be something that I go find, something that I can engage in because I want to, because it's something I care about. But most people feel they have to in order to live like the life they want to live. And I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm saying that it's almost like someone may not even want to go to college, but they feel like they're going to get cheated out of life if they don't.
Trey, I want to really target on something because you mentioned that education is not really something you're passionate about. But what I'm not talking about higher education. I'm talking about education from like kindergarten to 12th grade, which is required for pretty much every 8th grade. Other than that high school is not required, but education from essentially, as a child to 8th grade, that foundational education. Trey, would you say that the majority of problems, whether it's, and of course I don't know if you study this a lot, but the majority of problems in today's society, just the United States society, not the world society, just the United States society, including parental ability, including commonsensical stuff, the stuff that we talked about earlier in areas of maturity, would you say it is a lack of education in which results, or that is a contributor to what results into our deficit in these particular areas? And that includes the ability to parent effectively, the ability to raise kids, the ability to have people critically think. Would you say those things, that lack of education contributes to those things? Or the deficit in the education?
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. My personal opinion is that like it's the lack of good parenting that causes that, and then the way to fix that would be to start an education system where you can teach people to be better parents.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Like for me as a kid, I didn't get to see good parenting as a kid, and so I didn't see it. So how did I learn what it looks like? How did I teach myself what effective parenting is? I bought 12, 14 books on parenting. Doesn't make me an expert, but at least I get to see it. I get to see it now. Here's what it should look like, at least what I think is ideal. But I had to educate myself in the topic, and I don't even have kids. So what the hell is wrong with Chad to where he's buying parenting books and he's not a parent? It's because I'm looking at things again in a big scope and going, okay, these issues are causing what? If parenting is an issue, which you said, Trey, like we know that Sarah and I agree that pretty much, I think at least we agree that pretty much education is one of the foundational root of why we suck at life as a culture. So if we can teach kids not just 1 + 1 = 2, but we can actually teach kids, hey Trey, I know how to treat you with kindness now. How are we going to do that? And I'm not talking about the public school system even. I'm talking about education. And I remember somebody told me once, a mentor of mine, he said, don't let school get in the way of your education. Okay? So that's what he told me that face to face, and he said, don't let school get in the way of your education. I said, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. So point is that when I say education, I'm talking about the entire way we're educating youth, and how we're influencing our youth from a very early age to all the way into adulthood. And if education can be improved, would it improve politics? Would it improve public policy? And would it improve interpersonal relationships? Would you say yes?
Informed voters are way better than non-informed voters that just vote on their feelings right now.
Yeah, I think Sarah, you and I are definitely on the same page. I'm asking Trey or Cameron on this one.
Would it improve any of those? And talking from the general level, well, first, I'm interested in the parenting thing real quick. If you were to, because I'm just curious, how would you describe your parenting style if you were to be a parent? Like 1 minute or 30 seconds.
If I was going to be a parent for 30 seconds?
Well, like, how would you just describe it?
In like a short manner, he doesn't let you go on and on with it.
Teaching kids to critical think is a big part of it. And it depends on what age, of course, but being able to instill the ability to look at consequences objectively. Okay, that's a big part of it, and that includes people too. I'm not talking being just a T preference as an MBTI. I'm talking about people in general. So nutshell, consequences. Okay, so you're laying down, a child is faced with a choice. Let's say he's 14 years old. Let's say he's 12 years old. So it's about expansion. When you start out, you want to teach a kid to take care of his crap. You don't tell the kid to clean the whole house and the whole yard when he's 3 years old. You tell him to clean up his little toy box. You know, and then you expand. Now do your room, now do the bathroom, now do this, and you expand. It's the same thing with, you know, consequences, decisions. When they make decisions, here's a choice. How do you lay that out? So you have to walk a kid through the process of, okay, look at this. What is going to happen when you do this? Tell me what's going to happen when you do that. Okay, tell me what happens when you do that. Okay, now which one do you think is the best choice? And they tell you this, and then let's say that's the wrong choice, and we know as adults or whatever that might be a terrible choice. We say, now we just weighed out the consequences of this, right? We just looked at the consequences of this situation. How do you think that result, which is going to result from those consequences, is going to affect you? Now how is it going to affect people around you? And if you can instill this ability to critically think at a very early age, they're going to have an advantage in school. United States education would suck a lot less. Okay? And ability to be able to impact others and to be aware of the impact in which you have on others, negative or positive. And it needs to be reinforced. And it's not going to work a lot of times. Nothing works 100% of the time, but you have to drill it so much that it becomes habitual and it's subconscious. Consequence, consequence, consequence. Not so much like, and the problem is that, you know, we were all raised, I'm sure everybody anywhere from 18 to 30 years old, Sarah, and I don't know if you're in that range, but anybody from 18 to 30 years old, somebody, our parents were like, nope, that's the way it is. You make that choice or no choice. You know, and, you know, I'm going to ground you if you make the other choice. And you don't want to do that until they fully understand the consequences. Now, granted, there's some things you just got to stop. You just got to stop it because it's so dangerous to the kid. Granted, you know, there are variables to this particular scenario. But things that are minuscule or minor, they're very important, okay? They're very important for a kid to be able to look at things objectively and to be able to make informed decisions. Okay, so from a decision-making standpoint, that's the angle that I'm telling you is, and parenting is such a broad topic, Cameron.
It is, yeah.
To answer it in 30 seconds was just not going to happen for me.
Yeah.
I
was wondering if you'd be more of like, you know, really, really laid back, or if you'd be.
I'm definitely. I exhibit the traditional ENTJ personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On
top of that, I'm an Enneagram 8. I need someone to balance me out in the sense of like, you know, a lot more laid back. So if I'm going to have a partner in raising kids, it's going to be somebody that needs to be able to balance out the authoritarian or totalitarian standpoint that I tend to present. I don't mean to be that way. It's just my natural.
It's just your nature, yeah.
And so.
It's just the way people work, right?
Yeah, and it's just, you know, the very, very J-like. Everything has to be structured. If I were a single parent, my kids would never have fun. That's what keeps me. And so, you know, I want to make sure that I don't do that to them because I never actually have fun. My work is fun to me, so I'm like, okay, do your job 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, you know. And but to go back to what we were talking about as kids, it's also important to stop spoiling your damn kids, okay?
Yes.
You know, that is so frustrating to me, to spoil your kids. You've got to stop doing that. Like, even if you have a lot of financial resources or resources available, the intention is usually good. The intention is, I want them to have more than I had as a kid. That is a good intention, but it yields a bad result. You know, like, highway to hell is paved with what? Good intentions? That's what you're seeing in your kid if you continue that behavior. Okay? We have to learn, you know, that you're going to get something as a result of doing something. Okay? And I remember there was a particular scenario that somebody was, this girl that I know, well, rather, lady, she has a daughter. Her daughter is 20 years old, okay? The daughter says, the daughter's in college right now, and let's just call the daughter Jane. Jane's in college. She's 20 years old. Her mom gives her a budget. Okay, here's how much money you get per month. That's it. There's no exceptions. That's all you're going to get. So the daughter needed to expand her budget for whatever reason. I forgot what it was. And the mom said, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to expand your budget. I'm not going to do that. And the daughter goes, why? And she goes, I don't understand why you do that. It's like every time I ask you for money, you always want me to do something for it. See how that behavior was already reinforced? And I know the parent very well. She's a very excellent parent. And she has set those firm rules, but those are also influenced by peers who don't have that kind of parenting. Okay, so it's also about peer influence as well. So you can have a good education system that teaches all these groups of peers. So parenting is limited. And I remember another group of parents that I had spoken with. The dad said, it is me against the world, and I'm going to lose. And that's what he said. He's like, I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to lose. He's like, I can't teach my kids what they need to know in this world because he's like, I'm going to try. I'm going to fight as hard as I can. He's like, but they got every influence from YouTube media to friends to faulty education system to, their friends' parents to whatever they plan on doing. And he's like, I'm going to lose. And so this is a issue that I see as a big prominent problem. Is if we're looking at these particular things and we're going, okay, you've got to set up an environment where kids, they learn choices, they learn how to make effective choices, they learn how to make effective decisions. They can also learn to filter people out of their lives that are actually toxic for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting rid of these toxic influences and going, okay, look at consequences. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I see what's going to happen. If I do this, that's what's going to happen. And Trey, you always use the weed example. If you smoke weed, and it's not like you have anything against weed, but you like to question motive. But we need to teach kids to question motive and look at, why do you want me to do this? Why do you do this? Because you think it's just for this, but that's not the real reason. If you look behind it or you line up the evidence, it's actually different than what you're saying. You've rationalized your way into bad behavior.
Yeah, it's common.
So that's the problem that we're also having is children are not self-aware. And they're not realizing how that rationalization process. So what I want to do, ideally, in the psychology of children or whatever, is to teach them to stop rationalizing bad behavior or bad choices and look at it objectively and go, you have a left choice and you have a right choice. This left choice is going to result in this, and this right choice is going to result in this. Which one is going to be A, more beneficial for you, and B, more beneficial for everyone around you? And then if it's kind of a mix, now you have to weigh out the options. How do you do that? Well, A, you can consult. You can work with a bunch of different people and try to figure out a proper solution. Learn to work with people. Learn to exchange ideas. And again, this age, you're not going to get a 3-year-old doing this, but I mean, at the right age, this stuff can actually be reinforced. And so, but you teach the foundation very first, like I said, with the kid in the toy box, and then you expand it and then expand it and expand it. You do the same thing when it comes to decision making. It may be something as simple as eat 3 green beans instead of 2, and why. Okay, and it can be very simple. And it can be very complex. It just depends on what it is. And if we're educating our people, and then the parents are also doing this, and it's reinforced in education, this alignment can actually result into some kind of positive change. Trey, you had something to add?
Yeah, I was going to say that you had said something like, look at it objectively. You've got this decision, and what are the outcomes, and which one's the best out of the two. So earlier, I'd actually thought about with the kid, it'd be really important if you were parenting to say, okay, well, which decision is better. I know that with my parents, if I were to do that, or at least some of my parents, they would probably say, well, that decision isn't the best, and so you're wrong. Let's weigh again until they force me to decide what they wanted. And of course, as a child, you're probably going to do that, is kind of go in the direction that they want, knowing what they want and being trained in that direction. So I think it'd be important to have the kid recognize what it is they value and be able to explain that so that the parents would be able to know, what it is that they're trying to achieve. But at the same time, it sounded like when you were doing the TENI, and I'm not saying this is what I think you're doing, I'm just saying what it sounded like, was kind of forcing people to think like, NTJs in a sense, because that's what it sounded like was, which decision is going to lead in which direction.
And see, this is where I'm gonna say, I see where you're coming from, but here's the thing.
I'm just saying that it'd be nice to clarify that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna dive into that. So here's what I'm saying is that, okay, people want to think like NTJs. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm talking about decision making. Okay, so when it comes to decision making, it's not like just NTJs. It could be NFJs, or it could be Js in general who are known to make decisions, and Ps who are known to have more of a natural approach to things. So you don't force people outside of their type. People have to flex. If I operated as strictly ENTJ all day long, every day, I would have no relationships with people. Zero, right? I'd have no relationships, because I'm not saying that. We have to learn to flex and stretch. In order to make decisions, you need to stretch the preferences. Having a objective look is a stretch for some types, and I said this at the very beginning of the call. Some people are born with disadvantages. They're not able to stretch as effectively. Whereas me, I didn't get taught what I'm telling you now. I actually learned it, and I learned it on my own. And I learned it in a way that I was like, okay, here we go. This is how it works. And that's because it came natural to me. My job is, as we move through life, is that we see things that natural. We don't hold on to this knowledge and say, this is my secret. We teach. That's what we're supposed to do, is we're supposed to teach these things. So if I say this came natural to me, so I'm naturally a little more, I have more expertise, I can teach you who has less expertise, say you, ENFP or whatever that you are, I can teach you who has less expertise to actually grow and expand and to learn how to use TE effectively and learn how to make things objective. Whereas sometimes they can do the same thing. They may go, look, here's how you want to talk to people. Here's how you want to associate this. When we're talking about these particular things, we've got to learn that this is all about flexing and stretching. And that's why you start your journey as a type. You don't say, I am this type. Because, you know, there's nothing wrong with objective decision making. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Everybody should learn how to do objective decision making. If you say, I don't want to do objective decision making, you're a moron. Like, you need to learn to be objective. Just like I know that I can make subjective decisions based on values. And sometimes I need to make objective decisions based on values too. So I learn this FE or FI when I need to. I learn to TI when I need to. I learn to stretch to things that are out of preference for me for very specific reasons. And so we know, and those are my stretch. Those are my stretch points. So it's important that we understand that this is not a everybody needs to be an NTJ. This is important to understand that no matter what type you are, you learn to develop these things. Okay? Because I was a kid, and I was raised on martial arts as a kid. Martial arts was my thing as a kid. And for me, that really stretched me to learn SE. Be here in the moment, right here and right now. Be present. Be mindful. Be those things. Do these things. Because we're SE oriented. You've got to focus on SE. I think it was beneficial to me to stretch to that function. I think it's very beneficial to me to learn how to use SE at a very early age and be mindful of my surroundings. I think that, you know, learning to be feeling oriented because of my constant burning bridges mentality before I did that, and I said, you know what, something's wrong, I got to fix this crap, is a stretch. So, but when it comes to education, we need to teach, and we're talking about decisions, and we're talking about informed decisions, you need to be logical. Okay? Yes, you need to weigh in the feeling variable. But here's Myers-Briggs' associated method for making decisions. Sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling. You can't go sensing, intuition, feeling, no thinking. Right? None of this. Okay? So again, that's sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling. You have to use all four to make a successful decision. Okay? You take in the data first, you look at the effects and the inference of that data and what it can actually become. Then you actually look at the logical consequences and the pros and cons of that data, and then you look at that decision or the decisions, which one's the best, you weigh out a logic, then you look at the impact it has on people, and that's what comes to your final decision. But let's say that I suck at sensing and I suck at feeling. I'm not going to say, you know what, Chad, you're an ENTJ, so don't worry about the sensing and don't worry about the feeling, because that's not your natural preference. Don't worry, just don't worry about it, okay? So the education should teach how to flex to these different preferences. And I'm not saying that education should be 100% MBTI. I'm saying that it should teach all of these elements, and it should teach us how to actually use the things that make good decisions. And the things that make good decisions is use of all four functions, all four. And so, but where we lack in society is we're not mature, emotionally immature society, okay? So everybody's not making decisions based on ethics and values. They're not making decisions based on logic anymore. Because ethics, if you really look at the core of ethics, it's actually rational. Ethics are rational. They're not irrational, and ethics are not irrational. The feeling function in itself is not an irrational function. It's a rational function. Okay? It is very rational. Ethics line up. Okay? One ethic plus one ethic equals two ethic. Okay? It actually makes sense. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, it's complex because you're dealing with humanity. You're dealing with human things. But it still is very, very rational. So you have to take that into the equation of how it actually results into a positive outcome. You take those things into the equation. So when you look at the sense of ethics and what ethics are, and you go, okay, I can make a decision based on ethics. Again, let's use a real life example of what this happened to Chad recently. I had a person blame me and say I was the worst person on the face of the earth because of the X, Y, and Z. This was very recent. I'm talking super recent. They said, you are one of the most horrible, deceitful, snake people that I've ever met. Okay? Now I like this person. This person just insulted me, right? And this person I considered a friend of mine. I said, man, you were like a brother to me. And so, but did Chad get his feelings hurt? Nope. Chad didn't get butt hurt at all. Chad said, okay, go ahead and dump
all your... girl?
Yeah. So go ahead and dump all your emotions on me. I said, get it out. Get it out. Let's bring out your emotions. Say whatever you got to say. And I was like, once you got it out there, let's actually solve the problem. Okay? Let's focus on the issue at hand. Now, was I actually on the inside disappointed that it even happened? Yes. I was hurt. But again, self-control, self-awareness. You can feel the emotion coming up. You learn to suppress it and still make a good decision. And so when the misconception is, oh, feeling-based people get emotional, it's complete bullcrap. Okay, that is bullcrap. Anybody can learn to suppress their emotions and not make emotional decisions. Okay, so if you're in a situation that gets heated or whatever, and let's say you have an anger outburst, you reacted on your emotion. You made a decision to burst out and not contain your emotion. And it was one of those decisions you had to make quickly. It was one of those quick decision moments. But you still made a decision. And a non-decision is still a decision. So don't tell me you didn't make any decision. If you don't make a decision, it's still a decision. Okay, so the point is that, if something happens in your environment, don't react emotionally. Emotional decision-making is immature. That's emotional immaturity. You can make decisions off values and be a very mature person, okay? And you can make decisions off of logic and be a very mature person. And so there's not one that's better than the other, but you should consider both when you're actually coming to a point in making decisions. When you're actually making decisions, both should be considered. So in no way, to clarify, because Trey got the impression I was preaching in NTJ, so I'm glad he asked me that, because I wasn't even aware that was what was coming off. So
I didn't actually think that you were, but
yeah,
I was hoping that no one was thinking that.
Okay, well, good catch, Trey, because I wasn't aware of that. So it's important that you guys understand that this is not, hey, live like an NTJ. I'm going to teach you to be objective, okay? And you need to be objective. You need to look at things objectively. And, whether it's in the world of ethics or whether it's in the world of logic, you can still look objectively and go, wow, if I make this decision, it's going to affect this person.
I think that's really important, especially in today's society, because I think that, there's definitely a balance, right? Because there are a lot of people who, will just call anything that has anything to do with your feelings like BS, and then just kind of ignore it. But then and shame other people for those feelings and stuff. But at the same time, you have this, and Carl Jung spoke about this a lot. I didn't actually read the book because I don't own it, but my friend was talking about it. He owns the Psychological Types, 16 Psychological Types by Carl Jung. Mm-hmm. And in it, he talks about the value war in society, the FE versus FI. And I don't really know a lot about it because I don't own the book, I didn't read it, but I started thinking about it, and the difference between FE and FI, a lot of times FE is more about kind of protecting and kind of blanketing somebody's a group, or you know what I mean, making sure everyone's on the same page, we're all good. And I think that FI is more about uncovering intentions in an individual versus the entire group. And so what I see in that is that a lot of times you'll see in society there's this really big problem where a lot of the focus is on validating people's intentions and understanding why they're where they're at, or why they're feeling what they're feeling, what they're doing. And that would be more like FI in a sense. And I'm not saying it's limiting to that, because some people take different strategies and stuff like that. FE users can do the same thing FI users do.
We use all 8 functions, so
yeah. And then you've got FE, which is more focused on not being abrasive and stuff of the sort. And when I think of FE, and I hope I don't offend anybody when I say this, but when I think of FE, I think when I think about problems that are caused by FE in a sense, and I'm not even saying this is healthy FE, but I see things like this love your body movement, you know what I mean? Instead of understanding that a lot of people just are too lazy to actually focus on, making sure they stay healthy and eating right and working out, stuff like that, making sure that your body is in good shape. Instead of that, people just resort to this, it's okay, I'll pat you on the back and you'll be fine. And I think that's FE a lot, but I see that a lot of FE users have this eventual, I've seen FE users have a goal where they're eventually trying to get, when the person trusts them and stuff of the sort, kind of get them to go on activities with them that would help that problem and stuff of the sort. And I've seen that with FE users. But at the same time, I think it's people like me that would come in and just be like, look, this is what you need to do, because I can see that you're on a path to, you're on a bad path, and I feel like, if you need me to help you, I can help you. But me being that direct would hurt an FE user and be like, whoa, what are you doing? You know what I mean? How can you just say that to them like that? Can you imagine how they felt about that? And and then an FI user would be more apt to find the reason behind why the person isn't doing the work and why it is that they do eat like that. You know what I mean? Finding the stress, the motivator behind that, finding what it is that they're escaping from, things of the sort. And I think that it's a big problem when those are so dramatized in society because you have two different viewpoints. A lot of times they clash, and a lot of times they kind of help each other out in that sense. But I don't see a lot being done for actually fixing the problem, and that's where TE and TI would come in, and everyone has these functions. But I just think it's important that everyone recognize that when Chad is talking about critically thinking, I think it's really important to weigh those, especially with all the problems we have in society, where it's more focused on blanketing people's feelings and understanding their feelings versus like how those can be redirected and stuff of the sort. Which is what I'm focusing on right now. Like what I'm trying to understand is like how you flip it around and you're living a more healthy versus unhealthy life. Like I may not understand as well as an INFP why someone is doing what they're doing, and what the consequences of my actions may be for another person. I may not be as good as an INFP at doing that, but I do understand that that's what happens. I understand that people do, have a problem with this, and so they're trying to find some kind of direction or something of the sort. But what I'm doing is I'm recognizing that there's a problem, and I have to find some way to fix it. And sadly enough, because of how I need to flex as well, because of how much hate goes towards people like me, where I'm just like, I just want to come out and say, this is how we need to fix it. I can help you fix it. I'm here to fix it. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you. People they'll be like, well, who says I want your help? You know what I mean? And it just causes this problem where it's like, I have to flex as well and learn how to reach you, in a sense, and reach the individual and how they personally feel about it in order to help you. And so I'm flexing as well in that sense. And I think that what Chad's saying is that if we have to flex to kind of shoot for our own purpose, I think that other people need to flex as well, and to actually maybe even listen to people, like when I say when I try to help you with a problem and you turn me down because you're on the opposite spectrum of preference, and maybe you took it a different way than was intended. You may run from someone like me, but I'm really trying to help you. And I think that there needs to be a flex in both directions, where I need to flex to learn how to communicate better with people and individuals to help them with what I'm best at, and finding the parts of me that that's what Myers-Briggs is all about. Like MBTI is all about development. So if I could learn how to work with people better and understand people and the way that they personally feel better, then I can help them and guide them towards what I know how to do best, and that's solve problems. And so in the same way, a feeling preference would have to take into consideration that they may know how other people will feel about decisions they make and how they'll personally feel about decisions they make, but eventually they're going to have to understand the decisions that are more critical in that sense, like critical thinking in that sense, and kind of learn how to flex in the opposite direction as well, where someone like me may come up and maybe not even, like let's say I'm not flexing, and I try to help somebody that is a feeling preference. If they haven't developed any of their thinking preferences, then maybe they're not going to listen to me at all. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if they can,
they got to be able to weigh it out. They got to be able to balance and meet you halfway, which I'm big about. Like you've got to be able to meet people halfway, and we're all born into our natural preference, and the feeling preference have an advantage over thinking preference typically because. And in the sense of relationships and that kind of thing, because they connect. That's what they do, is they're looking at the human perspective, and it's easy for someone who's always who has the human perspective in front and center of their mind, right front in front of you. This is what I'm seeing 90% of the time because I'm an FE Dom. I see this all the time, so that it's easy for them to be able to connect. Whereas for people who have FE in their 8th slot accordingly, or the last function they use, like ENTJs, we're not looking at human condition on a natural default basis. We're looking at logical outcome. Okay, that's what we're looking at. That's what's front and center of our mind. So we need to stretch too. But I don't want to go into the whole Myers-Briggs talk yet. I want to kind of stay away from that. I want to move. This is a non-MBTI video. This video is designed to really dive into components of our society, interpersonal development, to really get into the details of the things that are actually, deconstructive and not conducive to a successful society, but deconstructive to it. And education is a big component. It's not the only component, but it's a big component, along with parenting, effective parenting, which can be improved with what? Education. Effective parenting can also be improved with education. So what are the problems in society that cannot be improved with education? And I think the list is zero. I think there's nothing that can't be improved.
Do you mind if I butt in right now? You guys didn't let me. You guys didn't let me speak to the resolved answer because Chad went on a long spree of rant.
This
and
happens.
then I forgot who asked it, but you asked if you guys were parents, how would you guys raise your kids or something along those lines?
I wonder a lot of things. I have like a billion questions a minute.
Cameron, was that you that asked that question?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the scenario. There's two types of parents. There's the K's and the R's. The R's are the people that just fucking rapidly reproduce, and the K's are the people that are like wolves that tend to take care of their young, raise them to be part of their pack, teach them values, morals, and I don't know if you want to call it Christians, not Christians, or versus atheism and stuff like that. But like they have two parents in their households. They raise them correctly. They give them morals, and they try to teach them what's right and from wrong. I'm currently 30 years old. I do not have kids, but my sister does have one, and she's living currently at home. She's a single parent, and I'm trying. I stayed home to try to help raise him till he's at least 10 to 15 years old, and he can at least have a parent that, like a guy figure that could teach him some of the ropes. And if he had any questions as to why something needs to be fixed or why, he could come to me, and I would talk to him and tell him the truth and tell him how to look at life. And you asked me how much room do you give them to fail and not to fail. I give them a whole big large square or surface area to do that. This is how I love seeing people fail. It's one of the best things to me is because I can give them insight and show them how to do it or fix it for them, or let them give them a different point of view so they can proceed and actually complete a task or do it something correctly. Typically when I assign tasks to him or my nephews, I would give them 3 different ways of doing it. I'll go, hey, okay, you guys got 3 options. You guys can do it your way, you guys can do it my way, or you guys can try to do something that you guys would like how you guys would prefer it, but just use some of what I told you guys, and who knows, maybe your guys' idea together will be better. And of course, their way will take a lot longer. My way, it's a quick solution, and it's not the best solution. And then the third solution is typically what they will come up with, but it will actually be what they want, and they need to actually make what they want to come true. And we're continuing about the education system. Yes, it's more feeling for people right now instead of logic and technical skills. I don't know if you want to call it this or not, but like I feel that a lot of male strong role models that were alphas have been killed in our population, and it's affecting it big time because now we're being raised by a lot of pansies and dealers that don't want to do something to they want to give everybody a safe place and talk about your feelings and help hold their hands all the way through when you need to let them do accidents, let them explore their minds, get into scrapes, damage themselves, get into little arguments, develop into their own kind of persons. But now we have a strict role model like China, Which no, you don't think the way you want to think. You have to think the way we think and do the exact same way. And don't if you start goofing off or whatever, we're gonna kick you out of the school or do some stupid crap that's not gonna help anybody in the long run. And if you've noticed, well, this is what I was gonna say. A whole bunch of New York firemen on 9/11 died that day. And how many people do you think were women versus men?
Most of them were men, I believe.
There's 0 fatalities for women firemen. There's a majority of them were like men that died that day, or when they ran to go help the people that were in the buildings that were falling down and breathed in all that dust and air, the contaminants. They ended up dying. So it's about like 300 of them died, and those guys had families, people that they're teaching and whatever. And it hits hard home when you lose one of your parents, and that's not including the current wars that we had in Iraq and Afghanistan. How many people did we lose there? All those alpha males that were testosterone, the peak of our. A majority of the time, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's guys get 2 options: either go into the military or go to college. College, you go if you're intellectually smart, and you think you can become a philosopher or a scholar. Of course, if you're an alpha male, you'll go get your training, bulk up, get like the experience that the military gives you, which is an all-around. It teaches you how to be a man, and not that scholars and philosophers aren't men. They're just not as extroverted or go get them or go. They don't want to fight, or they don't want to. The scholars can let their feelings out more versus the male men that go into the military. Give me a second and I'll get back to you guys. Do you guys want to keep talking for a bit?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on a bunch of points. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff down, so I'm gonna elaborate. All right, so Saren was talking about failure. I'm going to jump on this first, and then I'm going to jump into some other points he made. But let's talk about this first. So he mentioned that failure, he leaves a big open space for people to fail. And I'm in a full agreement with this. One of the biggest problems that we have is that parents are setting up cushions for their children. Oh, if you fail, then I'll take care of you. Now, the parents will say things, but they won't do it. It's all like empty threats.
It's okay. Everybody gets a trophy for coming in last.
Yeah, exactly. And so parents are giving them this cushion. So if I say, okay, now you're 18, go get your own apartment, but if you don't make it, you can come back. Now, they may not say that, but they're allowing that. And that gives the student a lack of ambition, or the young person a lack of ambition. Whereas at a certain age in time in the past, and I'm not saying it should be like the past, we live in a digital age, a new age now, but I'm saying this is the way it was that if you hit a certain, you get out and you're on your own. That's it. There's no, you grow up, you're a man, you get out, you do what you need to do, and you take care of your crap. So that being said, failure is a big part of getting rid of that cushion. And I've found that many of the people I know who have cushions don't grow as fast. They're always taken care of. Whereas me, I had everything ripped out. I had my legs chopped out from underneath me. My mentor, the person who did this, he told me, he said, you're going to go through hell. He's like, and I have to watch you do it. He said, I can't help you. I can't financially help you. He's like, I'm going to watch you suffer. And he goes, and I do it, and he said this, I do it because I love you.
Hey Chad, do you mind if I butt in real quickly? I forgot to bring up a subject earlier, and you have the information written down, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I forgot to say that. How many of you guys had a Big Brother program in school? Like, let's say a second grader, third grader was being taught by a fourth, fifth grader, and they would come like every week or whatever, and you spend a whole class day with them, and they would talk to you and hang out with you that whole class period. Because when I was a kid, or when I was in I think second, third grade, I had like a fourth or fifth grader that would come, and he would just be basically not a mentor. He would tell me, like, if I had any questions, I would ask him. If we would just hang out during a recess period or whatever, and it was kind of mandatory by the school.
Yeah. And I haven't participated in Big Brother, but we had it where I was raised, but I didn't participate. But that being said, I'm going to finish the failure point, and then I'm going to allow Cameron to speak. He hasn't said a lot, and I want to definitely give him the mic for a second. But then I have other points. But I do have some other talking points I'm going to get on in a minute. But first off, one of the biggest issues, like I said, is failure is taught as a negative in our society. So if you fail, then you're a failure. Like you encompass what failure is. Like if you fail. Whereas I've always viewed failure as you fail your way into success. You keep failing and you fail, and it's good to fail. It's good to fail. And the problem is parents are teaching, oh, don't fail, because if you fail, then you whatever. I don't know what abysmal thinking they're thinking, but people need to learn that this world is not fair, and you will fail. And if you don't get comfortable with failing, then you're never going to do jack shit. That's what the reality is. You're never going to do shit. If you don't fail, you're just not going to do jack. And so because you're scared. You're scared of taking risk. You're scared of falling on your face. You're scared of whatever it may be. You got to fail. It's the same thing with approach anxiety when you're talking to women. Get used to frickin' approaching women so you can actually find a date. Like, all these guys are all scared, like, oh my god, I can't approach women because I'm scared. What are you scared of? Like, what are they going to do, rip your head off and suck your blood? Like, nothing's going to happen. Like, I mean, God, like, it's not that abysmal. But again, because we teach this failure thing or this fear of rejection, which is a whole other subject, but we teach this failure thing that, oh, you can't fail. You can't fail. So if a woman rejects you, it's all over. You're a failure now. Oh, you're such a loser because she rejected you. Shit. No, I just saved a few bucks by you telling me no. Thank you.
Yeah, grow some balls, guys. It's
and so that's the whole thing. And I see so many guys afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
And so we've learned as older adults, because even my parents saw rejection as a bad thing. Like, don't get rejected. Oh my God, I've only talked to 3 girls in my life was like the whole vibe that I was around as a kid. So we started playing games, like friends that we go, okay, we're going to approach 30 women, we're going to approach 50. Whoever approaches the most is going to get points. And we would play games. And you get so used to being rejected that it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
You just stop caring after a certain point. That's it. You're like, okay, well, that sucked. Okay, or you can laugh at yourself because you said something totally stupid. And it's funny. You can just look back and go, oh, that was dumb. I can't believe I said that. Was retarded. And I got a lot of funny stories with that, but that's a whole nother topic. But that being said, we've got to be taught to fail because, again, this is why that our guys and our men in society, and I'm very passionate about men and men being men, and our men in our society have become like pansies. And Sarah mentioned this. He said there's a bunch of pansies around. And I agree with him because and it's not because they were born pansies. It's not because they were born scared of the world. It's because we've made an environment to where we're teaching them not to fail, number one.
Yeah, no one taught them.
No one taught them.
For the failure,
Cameron, I'm going to get just a second. Let me top this point up and get right to you. Hang on to that point. Write it down if you have to. Do whatever you need to do. So point is that we're taught as kids, okay, don't you fear this, so now we're not finding suitable dates. So now this is where it ultimately creates this huge problem because now our relationships are dependent on who can we get instead of who do we want, okay? That is the core issue with our relationships, and people wonder why, oh my God, I'm dating somebody I could just get because somebody was interested. Now I have to be interested because I'll never talk to anybody again. So it's no longer who do we want. It's about, oh, this person kind of likes me, so I guess I better like them back because nobody's ever going to approach me, so I might as well just do it. Where instead, you go out there, grab it by the balls, and just take it. And take your, make your opportunities, get them. And you do what you have to do. And yes, you're going to feel the fear. You're going to feel the nerves. You're going to feel all the shaking and the tendencies if you're not used to it because you are going to fail. You're going to fail a lot. There's a book, and I believe it's by Susan King, if I'm not mistaken, and it might be somebody else, but the book is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I don't remember the author. I believe it's Susan something. But it's a great book, and it talks about, feel the fear and just do the dang thing anyway. Because you're not going to die when a girl says no. Yes, you may get humiliated. She may make fun of you. She may be rude. But you know what? If she's mean to you, then you don't want that person anyway. What the hell are you fretting about? So the whole thing is it's all psychological, but yet we're so afraid of this failing syndrome that's what's created a lot of issues in our relationships, and we haven't had conducive relationships in society because that's exactly what we're doing right now is we're taking what we can get instead of going after what we want. Okay, so Cameron, I'm gonna turn it over to you for a little bit, and then we're gonna go back.
Yeah, I always tell myself you never lose if you learn. And also like it's kind of like I always try to put myself out there. I always want to try and do new things. I always want to do as many things as possible, really, because I just never want to regret missing an experience. Because to me, regretting not doing something is always much, much worse than having a rejection, because at least the rejection or a failure even, I can use that to learn, and I can see that in the future, if I get a similar situation, I can maybe choose a better course of action about how to go about something. And the thing is, especially in life, if you're trying to do something, you only need to succeed once, and that's how I see things. And especially in business, I figure all of the biggest businesses are people that usually try a lot to try and they try several ideas out. It's never really going to be their first try. That's like a fantasy Cinderella story. It doesn't happen. People always have to keep on trying in order to succeed. But the thing is, you only need to try once, and once you try and you get it right, then you pretty much you win, right? That's how I see it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to clarify one couple things, and if Trey has something to say, we'll jump to him. First off, the book that I was talking about, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways by Susan Jeffers. And the other thing is, I said I'm very passionate about men. I want to clarify that's exactly what I meant. So obviously, I want to clear that up, that I was called out on that. Somebody's like, oh, I'm very passionate about men. I'm very passionate about the development of men. There's a difference. So I just want to be clear. That's out there. Does everybody know that I wasn't talking about if you're a man, I like you kind of thing. That's not my position on that. So, okay, Trey, did you have something to say, or do we continue?
About what specifically?
Anything.
No.
Okay. All right. So the other thing that I really want to dive into is conflict. We're also taught, one of the contributor society as well as conflict management and learning how to view conflict. We talked about failure. We talked about education. We've talked about parenting a little bit. We've talked about some core issues that are going on. Conflict is another one. Everybody sees conflict, and we're taught that conflict is this horrible thing if you have a conflict. And if you think about it, what has conflict resulted in? If it weren't for World War II, what would have happened? Okay. So we've got to look at some of the circumstances that actually conflict can be very. Saren, did you say something?
Yeah, conflict breeds progress, and it jumps us like 20, 30 years. If we would have another world war, we'd be more advanced and.
Arguably.
I don't know if you guys. I forgot the economics people. I think it was Keane and someone else. But there's
Keynes and like for the deficit economy, or
there's a YouTube video, and these two economists were fighting.
Keynes and Reaganomics, and Reaganomics is like I don't want to say anything without really understanding what you're trying to get across, but yeah.
No, it's different, totally different. There's these economics that were talking and on YouTube, and someone did this video. It was freaking hilarious. And they're showing both their versions of how the economy should be ran that would help us out of like the Great Depression, or how to continue clearing up the debt and running it correctly. Because right now we're just piling up a whole bunch of debt, and it's not helping anybody. And yes, these college loans and all this crap. But I was just I don't want to go off subject, but. What were we continuing talking about earlier?
Conflict. So.
The conflict breeds acceleration and progress. So
right.
If you want to keep talking regarding that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna dive in that, but I do want to clear something up too that you said, Saren, that I forgot to get.
I'd like to make an antithesis.
Yeah. Let me get right back to that, Saren. I want to say something that you said earlier. I want to clarify. Saren did say that the men who go into combat are more alpha, the people who scholar. That is semi-true, but it's not 100% true, because a lot of the battle today is a psychological and an intellectual war. Okay, and so you've got to arm up.
I'm just depressed that we lost all those smart people.
I don't know why we haven't talked sooner.
Freaking oil.
I don't know why we haven't talked sooner. We have a lot of the similar views, so we definitely need to talk, you and I.
No, like you said about the male perspective. We lost so much talent and so much. You just imagine what they had ideas, they had inventions as well that we lost because of stupid conflicts.
Right, and so there's an issue there, and that's a whole nother subject, and I want to get on that, but this video is really long, so let's keep rolling with the flow we got. Conflict. I talked about conflict. We talked about how it breeds progress, but we don't know the progress in which it will breed. So a conflict in itself is a risk. But let's take it down to a myopic level, and that's conflict, say, between me and another person, an interpersonal conflict. Okay. If both parties are mature, generally they can get over their crap and actually move on and gain new perspective. And I say generally, there's always exceptions, but generally conflict is not as negative, and yet we're teaching, negative conflict, negative, negative, negative. All these things are negative. They're not conducive to a society, and I think conflict is really beneficial. I mean, if it weren't for conflict, the United States would have never been formed, okay? If it weren't for conflict, there would have been, we would be all ruled by different cultures, and we don't know if it would have been better or worse, but I can tell you I like the United States as it is. If it weren't for conflict, we'd still be under the Articles of Confederation.
I liked it. I don't like it no more. Our society has crumbled.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of reasons why conflict can be very beneficial. But again, if it's emotionally charged, which we talked about levels of maturity, if you lack emotional maturity, conflict now becomes my feelings versus your feelings, or my emotions versus your emotions, and who can get louder or who can get more overpowering, who can get in this situation, and this gets really, really messy. The one thing I can appreciate about Cameron is because he's NTP, I believe, is he wants to take in that information and he wants to have it fully thought out. So he's a lot less likely to just jump to conclusions like, Sarah and you and I are doing, because this is our natural preference. We just this is what we got to bang into society. Let's do it. Let's get society let's get this done. Let's get this done. And whereas Cameron's like, yeah, but I don't know if that's going to really result. I got to figure it out. Let's think about it more. Let's analyze it. And I really appreciate that perspective. And again, Cameron can tell me, hey, Chad, I don't know if that's right. And I can look at myself and go, that's a conflict. That's a disagreement, right? It's conflict. It's a minor conflict, but it's a disagreement. And I'll be like, okay, let me think. Okay, well, why is it? I'm going to argue like a TE user, like, okay, well, you got to prove it to me, but why it's not right. But if he has a rational response, then I'll let go of my opinion. But as far as so conflict is a really good thing, because if he didn't question me and he tried to be agreeable, my perspective would have never changed. Okay, so it's important that we learn to embrace conflict, and this is another thing that I had to teach myself as I grew older. That wasn't so much like my parents taught me these things. So anyway, Trey, you had something to say?
Oh yeah. Okay. So it may just be my Enneagram 9 in me, but I like to argue against conflict. Okay. So what I find, and I mean, this is just, let me just
argue against conflict. That's contradictory, right?
Why is that?
It's oxymoron.
Because I'm arguing against conflict.
Yeah, and so therefore
I think I'm bringing another perspective. I'm gonna phrase it that way so it sounds less like conflict. But no, I'm gonna look really quick. The 359 tri-type purpose, just so I can kind of.
All right. Well, while Trey's looking that up, Cameron, do you have anything to interject?
For conflict, yeah, I was gonna say, from my understanding, it's generally going to be good. Yeah. I like to answer specific questions. Like for World War II.
Straight to the point. I like that. That's good. All right, so go ahead.
I can definitely back it up, but like for World War II as an example, I mean, it was terrible. But for the United States, they were definitely the biggest country, before they had the Great Depression, and I would definitely say that the war economy brought us out, and that's an example of a positive.
The U.S. brought the whole world out.
Seriously.
Piece of shit.
Because
before we got there and we started rebuilding it, they didn't even have skyscrapers or reinforced steel stuff. Like all the technologies that we advanced through war are more advanced. Like the Enigma machine, all the technology, like computers were developed to send information on secretly or fast. All the airplanes, ships, jets, boats, whatever you want to call it, you see all the progress that we've made. Even freaking the space race was a war, right? Who can get to can get to space first.
This is a really interesting subject. Let's drive right back to Trey.
Okay, so some people may not know this. Enneagram has personal missions based off your Enneagram tri-type, and so for 359, the tri-type is called the thinker, and 3 is all about being appreciated. 5 is about knowing, like understanding things, and it's kind of like they're called the investigator, and 9 is all about like removing conflict. And it says for the 359 that the mission is to use your ability to unite opposing points of view, find compromise, and create workable solutions. And so when I see that, it makes a lot of sense for me, because it seems like I'm always trying to find where, like even just in what I'm working on now, like it seems as if, I'm really looking at the two people and what it is they care about personally, and how I can find some way to kind of get them both to kind of agree, and I don't even mean agree, like I don't mean to change perspective or values at all. What I'm saying is that when I look at war or anything of the sort, what I see is that two people have problems and they're trying to fix it, and the way that they think they should fix it is by having this. And somebody else may have a problem and they need this, but the thing is these two contradict. But the thing is, I think what the problem is personally is when I see that these two people need these two things, do they really need those two things? I think that they've convinced themselves that they need these two things to fix their problem. So, if I have a problem and I'm trying to fix it, the solution may be this in my mind, and their solution may be this, but those are contradictory to each other. But personally, I see that there may be some issue in what their solution actually is and whether or not it's actually contributing to their need. And so, if someone took like two countries needed something, then I could look at that and say, is your solution actually going to fix your problem? Like it may be something that you think will fix it. Like you may look at something and go, this is what we need. This is how we get this problem fixed. And then the other person may say, well, this is what we need. This is how we get this problem fixed. But personally, I look at that and I'm like, well, why do you think that that's what you need in order to fix your problem? Like, the solution may be contradictory to another person. And personally, I think that people have just convinced themselves that this may be the solution, where there may be lots of other solutions, or it just may be the wrong solution, the one that causes conflict versus another one, where you could easily find what it is that you needed without causing the conflict. And I think that that is also really important, because personally, when I look at something like war, you guys were saying something like that it breeds progress, and I think that that's true, and I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I kind of look at deciding that you need to have war and deciding that you need to have this conflict in order to move forward kind of seems immature to me in a way, because I look at that same thing and I go, well, I see that you need this and you need this, but is it that you really need that? It's like maybe you have decided yourself that this is what you personally need to solve your problem, while your growth may be internally and not externally, where you may think that your growth depends on what's around you and in your surroundings, something that you see that you need to get. But
do you want to go live in a third world country?
What?
I
don't think it's relevant. And if you'd like to make it relevant, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, well, like you keep spouting off that a war is in progress, right? But like, if you look at it this way, yes, we did invade Iraq and we did invade Afghanistan, and of course, fortunately, they're too far away from us, and we couldn't actually affect them the way that we wanted to rebuild them or steal their oil. And if it would have been a lot smarter if we let Turkey take over, what's that stupid state right next to them?
Talking about Syria?
Syria, yes. Let them deal with it. Give them the troops, give them the support from Europe, and let them deal with that one. Whoever was our ally, which is Iran, we finally got into the circle to actually play ball. But at the same time, some people still want to go to war with them. And you got to look at our main ally in the Middle East was Saudi Arabia. But would you like to live in their civilization? I mean, their culture?
Well, let me interject.
I still don't understand what that applies.
I'm gonna interject with this real quick, because that's when you talk about foreign affairs, it gets really, really, really complex. I'm gonna bring this down to a real fundamental level, right? When you're in a situation that, let's say it's between you and someone else. Let's say that I'm gonna make a hypothetical example. It's really basic, and this is an ethical thing. Okay, this is an ethical decision-making process. It involves logic, but it's also ethical. Okay, I'm not gonna say there's no other choice, but when it's you and someone else, and it's this person, and you can have this amount of, let's say that it's you are going to die or someone else is going to die, and let's say that someone's manipulating it to where you have to choose your own death, or you have to kill them and you'll survive. So or he will choose to kill you and he will survive. So it's between you and someone else. Okay, so a situation is set up to where you have a forced choice. You have to make a choice, whether it's you survive or he survives, or if you don't make this decision fast enough, he's going to pull the trigger and you're going to die. Okay, so let me make sure I understand you correctly. What you're saying is there's still a way out of it, and you just got to think harder. Okay, and my perspective is you have this period of time to make a decision, or else if you don't make a decision, you're dead. That's it. You don't have 3 years, 30 years, 20 years, 15 years to come up with a decision. You have to make a decision, and you have to make it now. And sometimes war is the way to go. It's not a great thing. It's not the best thing, but war has always been progress as far as I'm concerned. I've always seen it as progress. It's unfortunate that it has to be that way.
Yeah.
I wish there was a better way, but in my perspective, war is one of those things that has to happen sometimes because it's between one party and another party, and one's not going to budge. So if it's your
does everybody think that we should live till we're 80 years old? Everybody in the world? Or do you guys realize the true facts that we're not all born the same? We don't have all the same privileges. We're not all going to live till we're past 60.
Yeah. Well, Saren, hang on to that point 1 second because I really want to capitalize on this, and I want to make sure that I'm relating to Trey and I understand his point, which I always believe. I agree with Trey in the way that he said, my favorite TV series, there's a quote on there. It says, when someone's got a gun pointing at your head, what do you do? Okay, and the other guy says, well, you do what they say or they're going to shoot you. And he goes, no. You said you can take the gun, shoot them, you move around, you can spin around, or the 146 other things you can do. Okay? So the thing is that there's always options. But it's the pressure of time which makes the options not the best. And in the sense of Myers-Briggs, which is TE makes the best choice at the given time frame. It doesn't make the best choice permanently. It's not idealism. It's what I have, the circumstances, this is what I have to do right here, right now. Whereas TI is more mapped out. This is how it should be. This is how it would work best. This is how it would be most effective. And it's much more expansive in that regard. TE is very short. So if you look at it in a Myers-Briggs way, war is like a TE solution. Okay? So let's say that, Trey, you're a world leader. You're the leader of the United States, and this is not a real scenario. But let's say you're the leader of the United States, President of the United States, and Russia decides to go invade Afghanistan. And they start shooting everybody, murdering everybody. Do you go, hey, Russia, let's stop this violence. Hey, Russia, let's fight. But they say, no, we want that land, and there's not a dang thing you're going to do about it. So are you going to let the Afghanistan people die, or are you going to go in there and fight Russia?
See, that's just the thing. Is I don't think the solution was understood correctly. Because when I say that that's usually the problem behind conflict, like behind two people and their conflict. It's much more about maturity, and it's much more about the two opposing arguments being able to both be understood and like finding what it is that your solution actually is. And so when you put me in that scenario, you're basically assuming that, which most likely true, that the other side is not going to want to listen to me and what I'm saying about possibly stopping and thinking about which their solution actually is, and whether or not the land is what they needed, or whether or not they can't do an agreement where both are beneficial or something of the sort. You know what I mean? Whether or not the land is what their solution to their problem is, or whether or not it's just making a compromise between the two. Really, that's something that would be amazing to be able to do, and to talk to the two people and determine, or to talk to the other person and determine whether or not that solution makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you are going to have people who are stubborn and immature, and that's just the thing. Is like if we lived in a society where people understood how important it is to understand other points of view. That's more the focus, in my personal opinion, is getting people to reach a certain level of maturity first, where if you could understand how important it is to think about things and stop and like think about whether or not you have a fault in your own personal thinking, or the thinking of your group, then that's my personal focus, is reaching that point where people can understand what's mature and what's not mature, and the consequences of being as immature as they are, and trying to reach a new level of maturity. Because if people were mature enough to both realize that, it would stop a lot of pain that happens in the world today. Because I'm not saying that there will not be some kind of progressive change through war. I'm not saying that because obviously there has been. But at the same point, I think that a lot of people's problems are themselves in a way. Okay, so like, I mean, I'm not saying all people's problems are themselves, but I think that, like we said earlier, taking responsibility and saying, okay, what is it that I need to learn to make the situation better? If people had more of that, then we could probably, we could be more focused on whether or not we could find another solution. And whether or not the solution we have is, right or not, and if it is, then how are we going to reach that solution without, going through the problem that we are? I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you dropped Chad. Let me speak for a little bit until he gets back.
I'm not back.
All right, so yes, war, like you said,
Can you guys hear me?
you don't
Yeah, I
think
can
that
hear
the
you.
people aren't. Oh,
Go ahead, Sarah. No, I'm sorry, not to interrupt.
I'm not sure if you don't think that it advances as quickly enough or it's not as good for progress, but the reason why we're fighting is because we have different morals and cultural upbringing. And like what I was trying to tell you guys earlier is that not everybody's going to live till they're 60 years old. I know you guys want to believe in a perfect world or society that everybody's going to live till they're 80 or 100 and everybody's going to be intellectually smart and what's it called. But in the current form of governments that we have in the whole world, I'm not sure if our cultures can sustainably be at a peaceful state. And yes, like Chad was saying, that it would have been better when he asked you the question regarding Afghanistan or for Russia invading Afghanistan and taking it over. Now that they failed earlier because we armed the Taliban. Then we tried to invade Afghanistan again because Osama bin Laden. Now we failed again. Would you allow Russia to come back in and blow the shit out of it and take over the land? Considering they have all their alpha males intact, they're not fucking playing patty cake with their troops and with their universe. You just saw what they did to Ukraine. You saw what they did to South Ossetia. I forgot how to pronounce that province. South Ossetia or shit, I don't know. It was like a few years back. I think it was like 2014, like on New Year's when they attacked and took it over, and they ran out the governor or the former president of that country, and they're pushing. And who cares if they keep taking over? Like, it's not going to interfere with me and the people in the United States as of yet. And I know we have this whole NATO deal where we're supposed to defend all these countries in the Eastern Europe, but what have they done for us?
Right. So, okay, but yeah, I don't want to dive into the politics. I'm actually going to end this call because it's been really long.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a more informal. You guys can stay on. It's just not going to be broadcasting anymore. So feel free to stay on, communicate, argue, whatever you want to do, debate. I'm just going to stop the broadcast now. Cameron, thanks for coming on. I really
appreciate it.
You can,
it's been nice
like I
talking.
said, you can hang out afterward. A lot of people probably jump in afterward. They just don't like getting on the actual live broadcast. Saren, feel free to stay on if you want to. You have a lot of great points. I really like hearing some of your perspective. It's rare that I come across someone who's almost as extreme as I am, or more so even. So pretty rare to see that. So thanks, Saren, for joining us, and I will end this broadcast.